fight before, but there's usually not this much talk.
What the hell is that?
Everyone's gotta give it now.
That's smart. Strategy.
Are you the good cop now? So did something go wrong, or did something go right?
You couldn't have done that earlier.
I hate you. Only thing bumming me out is the fact I have to live in a world without Captain America.
Sam.
I don't know if you've been in a fight before, but there's usually not this much talk.
What the hell is that?
Everyone's gotta give it now.
That's smart. Strategy.
Are you the good cop now? So did something go wrong, or did something go right?
You couldn't have done that earlier.
I hate you.
Yo! What's up, everybody? It's real. We're here. No thanks
We're
to
back.
Stank Industries.
Thank you, Stank.
Oh, man.
Stank on ya.
Real talk, before we went live, I was telling Justin there's a Cox Cable van right outside my apartment. I sent him a picture, and I said, these people better not be here to mess up my internet. So we have to delay this again. I did a little research. I don't know if anybody else is aware of this. Cox Cable, Cox Internet is actually a subsidiary of Stank Industries, so I would not be surprised.
I did not know that.
Yeah, man. They're like Hydra.
I
It's
do
just
now.
everywhere. In fact, I walked by just to make sure he wasn't doing anything like, oh man, he's going to like mess up the internet for the entire complex. I was going to talk
Right.
to him and just ask him like, hey man, is everything cool? Everything's fine here? And the dude, I had to walk away before things got weird because he was on the phone and I heard him say, "Hail Stank." So
What's the point of whispering if you could just walk by and hear it, though?
I don't
you
know. I don't think he knew I was there. So
I mean, it's 2021. They've got to come up with something. I mean, there's texting, there's private messaging. There's got to be something else.
it could have
that
been
he
worse.
could
I
do.
could have walked by. He could have been talking about one world, one people.
Yeah, there is that. Well, yeah. Life is a funny thing, especially when you're surrounded by flag smashers and, ultra patriots,
For sure.
like a certain John Walker.
Oh my goodness. There's a lot to unpack, a lot to break down, a lot to talk about.
We really do. We're covering a lot, and I've had a lot of time to think about all of it. I'm finally getting to a point where I'm just okay with hating John Walker openly even more, because now we're getting to this point where it's like, oh yeah, he's not supposed to be likable, right?
Yeah.
I can't really say what I'm trying to say without spoiling it.
Well, you know what, man? Let's get into it. First of all,
Yeah.
welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back to No More Heroes. It's been a couple weeks now. We have been through 2 episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And as such, you are going to get many, many, many thoughts today from both myself and
A lot.
Justin. But before we
Yes.
get into that, Justin, how have you been, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I am currently in the it's not necessarily the basement, but the first floor of one of my best friend's homes in Salem, Oregon,
Ooh.
which is not my home. I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and I decided to take a lovely birthday trip down to Washington. Spent a few days there. This is day 3 in Oregon. My birthday is the 19th, upon which day I will be returning to Anchorage. And so I told them, hey, I have a podcast. Do you have some stuff? I didn't bring my podcast equipment because I'm an amazing podcaster. So
Hey
they
man,
let me borrow.
podcasters got to take breaks too.
That is true, but not today. So they let me borrow this headset and let me use their internet and their space. So I'm having a good time down here, bro. The weather is 10 times as amazing as it is in Anchorage, Alaska right now. I do miss my daughter, who's my grandparents are taking care of her right now, and that's a blessing. It's good to see old friends. It's good to watch, movies with them and talk pop culture, politics, and of course the Winter Soldier. Man, I'm doing okay, man. How have you been?
I'm doing well, man. I'm loving the show first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about it. I'm also loving lots of other things. I haven't finished it, started watching the first episode of Invincible on Amazon. And it's beautiful so far. Not a lot has happened. No spoilers, because potentially that might be something that we dig into later on after we wrap up Falcon and Winter Soldier. But just acting wise, it's fantastic. Animation wise, it's super clean, super fun. It looks great, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I have not read the comics. It's been on my list for a long time, but it's always intimidating to start a new comic book series, especially one that has been going for a while, because that, like, if you pick up that first book and you really like it, you are kind of, you're signing up to spend however much money it takes to, like, get through the rest of that series. And Invincible is pretty deep currently. So, but I am excited both to continue watching the show and to read the series in comic book form. But yeah, I'm hanging out, man. Ghostbusters Afterlife released the first clip from the movie a little bit ago with the mini puffs. That was a lot of fun. So I did some mini puffed artwork, and between that and finally getting correct prints of my sketchbooks that I made last year, I'm gonna have some fun announcements on being able to get new stuff for me, art, prints, shirts, that kind of thing. So I'm staying busy, man.
Hell yeah, bro. I love it.
I'm glad to be here with you, dude. I missed it last week. It was Stank Industries failed us, but
my gosh,
we swore on the graves of our parents that we would not let that happen to anybody else, and that we would become bats. Or
when you're an employee of Stink Industries, you don't realize the paperwork, the blood signings, the rituals that you have to. I mean, it's insane. I don't recommend it.
Oh, hey, by the way, the chat wants to wish you a very happy early birthday.
Woo! Thank you so much. I will be 32 on the 19th.
Oh man,
which is practically 74, which is practically dead. You're talking to a dead man. I am a ghost. Do not call Peter Venkman on me. I would not appreciate it. But thank you, man. Chat. Thank you very much.
Speaking of turning into things, we could also become a bird, because people aren't going to get that unless they are fans of the thing that we're about to bring up. Before we get into Falcon and Winter Soldier, there were some couple of announcements and anniversaries in the wider world of heroes, jumping outside of I made notes, and I'm going off my notes, and as I'm saying it, I'm remembering, like, oh, this happened too, we could talk about that. Oh, this happened, and we could talk about, man, the Loki trailer, did that happen after the last time we tried to stream?
I don't remember.
Anyway, there's a Loki trailer.
I want to say yes.
It looks dope.
And it looks great.
and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Fan-freaking-tastic. Oh, man. Marvel TV is on a roll right
They
now.
really
dude.
are. Marvel in general is on a roll. I'm sure. I know you're still trepidatious about it, but I'm sure Black Widow is going to be super good too.
Ugh. Yeah. Ultimately, it probably will. Part of it, and I won't rag on this too long. Part of it is just.
Hold on, let me stop you real quick. Baron
Okay.
Zemo has entered the chat talking about Turkish delights.
Oh dear.
And then Ray Cameron said Zemo in the house to bless us with his fire dance moves. Now it's a party.
We need that.
So welcome,
Now it's a party.
welcome, Baron Zemo. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for everything you've done. You've done for us.
I'm sorry. Continue on what you were saying, my friend.
What the balls was I saying? I don't remember. Oh, Black Widow. Yeah, I don't want. I just, the legacy of Black Widow.
Is complicated.
It's complicated history. And I kind of want them to close that chapter out. I'm not sure why they're so scared to close out the Black Widow chapter. I mean, if they'll close out Iron Man, they'll close out Steve Rogers, maybe not Cap, but Steve, right? There's some chapters that after a while we just got to close out. Why kill Black Widow if they're just going to reopen her old files, so to speak? I
have some thoughts. I honestly think that as much as this is like Natasha should have gotten her own movie and we're going to give it to her now, even though like just on that notion, yeah, it feels kind of late because it's like, oh, she's dead. But I do think that a part of it is going to be that they are obviously introducing Yelena to us, and Yelena is clearly intertwined with Natasha. I mean, they're basically presenting her to us as her sister. And I think if they are going to be weaving her into the future of the MCU, it's going to be important to know where she came from. And if Natasha was already such a big part of her story, then it kind of makes sense to like use her as our point of view of a character that we know and we can relate to get to know her. So when she pops up later down the line, we understand how she's connected.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I don't
mind her becoming the new Black Widow. Yeah, if she becomes the new Black Widow, that's fine. I mean, that's great and everything. I was never the biggest fan of Scarlett Johansson's version of Natasha.
Okay.
I love the character in the comic books, especially. She was always ultra important. I don't know. There's something off to me. And ever since Iron Man 2, I just couldn't put my finger on it. But I was just like, they could have gotten so many better actresses than her. Why did they stick with her? She's bankable, she's funny, and she knows how to be an action hero. Sure. But I don't know, man. I just wanted to see someone else do it. So I guess this movie will grant that wish. If her sister is going to step in that role and that mantle and go on further, somewhat adventure-y adventures in the near future. But we'll see.
Yeah, it still blows my mind that they wanted Emily Blunt, and the only reason she had to turn it down is because she was contractually obligated to be in the Jack Black Gulliver's Travels movie.
Ridiculous, dude.
Like, I can't help but wonder, like, and obviously Emily Blunt is an amazing actress, and she's gone on to be in tons of other stuff, and she continues to have an amazing career. So it's not like her career ended by not taking on Black Widow. But think about how much, I mean, you look at what Scarlett Johansson has been able to do with all of the different, Avengers movies and Marvel films that she's been in, and is now getting her own movie like that. That could have been Emily Blunt. It's just it's so weird to think about, like, that one little thing is like, no. But also
Mhm.
that frees her up to be Susan Storm next to her husband as Reed Richards. So there's that.
Which, yeah, and gosh, it would just make no sense for them to pick anybody else at this
Yeah.
point.
I
Like,
mean, and
you know what I mean?
there's clearly like plenty of actors and actresses of whatever race or whatever like that could play those roles and do a fantastic. I said that
Sure.
and didn't even realize I was making a pun, but could do a fantastic job of playing those characters.
A plus.
Thank you. But
Yes.
yeah, when you see Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, you're just like, come on, like you don't need to pick
That's them.
anybody else.
Right. Like, make it easy for yourselves, like that's right there.
Yeah,
Worry about Johnny, worry about the thing, but we have Reed and Sue right there.
agreed.
And especially Doctor Doom. Like, that's the key. You've got to be careful with who's gonna play Doom because man, the two gentlemen and they're Toby Kebbell in the most recent one oh my gosh, I forgot his
I
name
don't
from
remember him either. Every time I try to think,
Nip Tuck.
like when I think of that actor specifically, I either go like, Doctor Doom, or I think of when he was on Charmed.
Oh, he was so young on
Yeah.
Charmed. Oh my goodness. And he was also, I think, the main villain in Runaways TV show.
No, that was Spike. I can't remember. James Marsters.
Was that not him?
That's it. Piccolo.
Oh, okay. Piccolo, Goku. Yeah, okay. I thought it was the same dude.
Both
Well,
from very popular CW
both terrible
WB
choices
shows.
for Victor Von Doom. Yes, absolutely. Terrible, terrible choices for Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
For Victor Von Doom. Why would you? I mean, it's like they were in the studio thinking, who's the worst person we could think? This is how I think of when I see what's his face from that 70s show, Topher Grace, and everything that I've seen him in, he fits. It's great. He's funny, he's charming, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then I see him in Spider-Man 3 as Eddie Brock, and I'm just like, no.
It was such
No.
a weird.
This is
like
all-
they wanted to play him as almost like a. Yeah, like a doppelganger, like an inverse Peter Parker. And I understand the logic from that angle, but it's. Yeah, I think Eddie Brock is just one of those characters that is so iconic that, like, regardless of if you like the Venom movie or not, I think someone like a Tom Hardy is exactly who you need as Eddie Brock, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need a doppelganger Peter Parker. You need an opposite Peter.
Yeah.
You need an anti-Peter. And that's what Eddie's always been, bigger and badder and villainous. And even just like thinking about like Tom Hardy and Tom Holland, like they exemplify that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of Bruce Banner, Hulk kind of, vibe. And that's what you're looking for in that Spider-Man Venom relationship,
thing-
not two guys that look
Yeah,
similar.
and the other thing
you know?
too is like you look at the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, and
Yes.
he's still bigger and more rough around the edges than Peter, but they were able to play that as like an older brother mentor kind of thing, which made it even more impactful when he became Venom.
Yes.
Yeah.
He became Venom, right. They made that work very, very well. First of all, that's just a fantastic show. And secondly, the way that they played that relationship was important. And the way that they played it off in Spider-Man 3 was just atrocious. So assuming that this whole weird Spider-Verse, Spider-Man, Homecoming 3, all of this is actually going to somehow lead into Venom becoming a part of the actual MCU instead of being its own thing or MCU adjacent, and he actually meets Tom Holland's Peter Parker and blah, 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 blah. It'll be very exciting to see the two of them, fight each other, be on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I hope they're somehow able to revert Tom Hardy back into a full villain because he's already an anti-hero.
Yeah.
And that happened way
To
too
me,
fast.
it's such a weird. Sony's relationship with Marvel is such a weird thing because it's like Marvel can use some Spider-Man characters but not others, and this and that. And I think if they had a defined, like, okay, Sony gets Spider-Man and all of his villains from like the first 100 issues or something, and then Sony gets everything after that. I think in a perfect world they would all be in the same universe. But I think if Sony had at least been like, okay, well, if we only get this many villains and we can't do a live action Peter Parker, but we do have like Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales and blah, 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 then I think it would have been great to just jump in and do a version of the Spider-Man universe where, you know, maybe they could do it like Quicksilver and have like, you know, he gets one movie but then he has to die, or like how Fox could use Quicksilver but not Scarlet Witch. And then they could have done it where like the main spider of the Sony universe was Gwen, and they could have done like in her comic where Peter is killed right away, like he becomes the Lizard and ends up dying, and then it could have just been the Gwen Stacy universe. So then when it does cross over, if it does cross over with the MCU, then it really is like a mixing of universes, instead of them trying to be like, well, technically we are also the MCU. You know, it's weird. Like, oh, Vulture is in Morbius, and it's, That said, I do agree. I think in a perfect world, it wouldn't be Sony borrowing Tom Holland. It would be Marvel borrowing Tom Hardy and bringing him over to do a Spider-Man versus Venom movie where he can just, you know, it can be like this, the symbiote has driven him to the point of madness or something, and he is in villainous mode. Something that it makes sense why he's an out and out bad guy instead of just like, you know, a good guy with no rules kind of thing.
Right. But and the thing too is that if Tom Hardy's a bad guy, then the symbiote has to be a bad guy as well. Because their relationship is almost friendly. What one understands, the other agrees. They literally have conversations with one another. So it's kind of a three-part thing, because the symbiote is totally alive on its own. You know, it still needs a host to survive, apparently, I think, in that version of the character. But it would be interesting. And in fact, the Venom sequel, Let There Be Carnage, it'll be interesting to see their conversations and how they deal with someone like Carnage. And blah, 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 because it's not just Tom Hardy being heroic or Tom Hardy being villainous. It's Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock conversating with this Venom symbiote about every decision that they have to make together. And in that way, Venom is almost like a buddy cop sort of film. You know, in a very probably unintended way, inadvertent sort of way. But it would be great to have that dynamic and their conversations about Peter Parker. Why is Spider-Man a threat? Why do they want to hurt him so bad? And blah, 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 blah. And if that same symbiote will eventually attach itself to Peter, because in the comics, that's how Venom became Venom. So it's they have a lot to talk about, to discuss. And ultimately, just to be safe, they may not go that route at all.
That would actually be really interesting. Like, and I think that'd be it would be a change, because the Spider-Man films so far have been pretty comedic. Like, there have been some tough moments, but by and large, they've been kind of like action comedies. And I think it would be very powerful for the symbiote to get attached to Peter, and Peter kind of becomes what we usually see Peter become, which is, it's like Clark Kent on Red Kryptonite, where he's just like no inhibitions, doing whatever he wants, doesn't care anymore, you know, doing whatever benefits him. And, you know, he gives into it and he's going with it. And when he finally gets it off of him, he's convinced that the symbiote is making him evil, that the symbiote is evil, and that he has to stop Eddie. He has to stop Venom. And I think it would be really powerful to have him realize it's not evil. It just, like, it takes away your inhibitions. It's only
Yes.
amplifying something that's already inside of you. And that would kind of send him on a journey of like having to check himself. Not that he's shown those things so far in his films, but just to kind of take a deeper look at the character and who he is and who he wants to be and why he is who he is. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. And we, speaking of that, I mean, we kind of get into that discussion in episode 4 with the Falcon Winter Soldier about something external that's supposed to make you great, but it only
Yes.
amplifies what's inside. And I love the discussion. I'm just gonna glimpse this before we actually hop into it. That glimpse of a conversation that John and Lamar have when he asks him, if you could take the super soldier serum, would you? And Lamar says yes. But as the conversation develops, and this is one of the greatest scenes of dialogue, in my opinion, in the entire show so far, Lamar says the same thing that the Doctor said in Captain America, the First Avenger, essentially. He says, power only, exaggerates, and amplifies what's already inside you. Whether it's good or bad, it's only going to blow up what is already inside of you. And I just thought that was amazing because Lamar is a good person, right? He is not a villain or a bad guy, but he is on John's side. And I feel like in many occasions, he's John's voice of reason on the battlefield. They're both soldiers, right? And as a matter of fact, now that I think about it, so was Sam. So was Bucky. They were all 4 of them are soldiers, and so they all have the same perspective, but they all have completely different perspectives as well. Especially now that they're not in war, they're in a new kind of Avengery, spandexy superhero kind of war where they're not just following orders from their commanding officers. And so, and Sam even talks about that a little bit in Captain America too. But anyway, that conversation was just absolutely phenomenal. And to see Peter have to go through that, which he already understands a little bit with, great power comes great responsibility and all that, it would be wonderful to see him and how he deals with having the power of the symbiote, which is infinitely more powerful than any suit that Tony Stark could come up with for him. You know what I mean? So anyway, just all that is super interesting to think about.
Oh man. We're talking about Spider-Man now. How did we even get here? Every time, dude, we're just opening a box of chocolates. That's not what I was gonna say.
Chocolate worms.
A can of chocolates. Anyway, to get back to what anniversaries and announcements and the wider world of heroes.
Yes.
Looking toward the land of the rising sun, Japan, we this past week, last week, was the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider. Some of you who grew up in the 90s might remember in the Age of Power Rangers, there was a couple different, not knockoffs, but just similar adaptations of Japanese Super Sentai tokusatsu type shows that were not as successful. Big Bad Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, and another one called Masked Rider. That was an adaptation of one of the series in the Kamen Rider franchise called Kamen Rider Black RX. Kamen Rider just had its 50th anniversary, so it's been around for a long time. And the man behind stuff like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Shin Godzilla, and who is currently working on Shin Ultraman, announced that he would also be working on Shin Kamen Rider. So his own spin on the story of Kamen Rider in film form. They released a little bit of teaser artwork. We'll post, I think I might have already posted that in Yes Have Some Group Therapy. By the way, Yes Have Some Group Therapy. It is a Facebook group. Look for it on Facebook. Join us. One of the mods will add you. once you send a request, and you can jump on into all of the nerdy excellence that we partake in there. The only rule is no memes, or else we will sick the madman known as Ryan Dole on you. So be aware of that. But other than that, Kamen Rider.
Yes.
Japan. I would love to see Japan one day. I want to go there. I want to just bask in all of its glory. But
Me too, bro.
the same way America has superheroes from Marvel and DC and these characters that just, even if you're not someone who follows comics or watches cartoons or anything like that, like, you know who Superman is, you know who Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine,
Right.
you know who these characters are. That's who these characters are in Japan. Ultraman, Kamen Rider, Evangelion, Pikachu, and another one who I told Justin earlier, I'm ashamed that I missed this anniversary, that I did not acknowledge it on the day it happened. Gundam. Gundam started, its first episode was on April 7th of 1979. And I'm actually wearing a Gundam shirt right now as penance. Not really, it's because I wanted to. I never don't want to wear a Gundam shirt.
Of course.
But Gundam's anniversary was on April 7th, and not long after that, it was announced that the man behind Kong Skull Island, Jordan Vogt
Roberts, yeah.
will be directing a live-action Gundam film for Netflix, which is very, very exciting. I'm very pumped for it. It's also being written by Brian K. Vaughan, who created The Runaways, Why the Last Man, Saga, Paper Girls. I mean, he has the market cornered on space opera and teen angst. So it's like, and then you get Roberts, who Kong Skull Island, literally about humans and giant things and fighting and battles, and to me it sounds like it sounds like we're on the right track, man. You and I are both enormous fans of Gundam. That was literally one of the reasons we became friends. I think I posted something about Gundam in group therapy, and you messaged me and you were like, bro, you like Ghostbusters and Gundam? And I was like, that's literally my bread and my butter. And then we became friends.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah, and here
And
we are.
here
Now
we
have a
are.
show. That's how it happens, everybody. What do you think about that, man? Are you excited?
First of all, I'm way beyond excited. I mean, it didn't hurt that Kong Skull Island was one of the best movies of 2017. And it also showed that, Vogt Roberts can do something that a lot of directors cannot do. It's direct well an A-lister cast, a large cast. You think about all of the people that were in Kong Skull Island. I mean, you had Tom Hiddleston, you had Samuel L. Jackson, you had John Goodman, you had John C. Reilly, you had a lot of people, and that's exciting. Whereas someone like Sam Raimi can direct a very small, powerful cast and make a masterpiece like Spider-Man 2. When you add too many characters in there, like Spider-Man 3, it'll just flop, right? So Vogt Roberts already has that on lock. Okay, so he's good with a good cast. That's one thing. Two things, he's amazing with visuals. You go back to watch Skull Island on HBO Max or whatever, or on Blu-ray, and some of the shots that he has in slow motion, especially in the beginning when Kong is just appearing, and that animosity develops between Samuel L. Jackson's character and Kong, and there's fire and his men are dying, and it's just like, oh my goodness, could you imagine seeing Char and a Gundam instead? So just the imagery is already like breaking my heart in the best way. And thirdly, I love the fact that they're being bold and having it go directly to Netflix. I think that's a very smart move. If you're not tapped into streaming services as the premier stream like way to watch movies and not no longer your alternative, you're gonna miss out.
Yeah.
Because we think about the releases for just thinking about HBO Max alone, which already has amazing TV shows like The Sopranos, The Wire, Barry, XYZ 123. But think about the DC exclusivity. Same thing with Disney Plus and Marvel. But also think about the future releases for Mortal Kombat, which comes out soon. The recent release of Godzilla vs Kong, which came out not too long ago. The Little Things, which had Denzel Washington in it, Space Jam 2, The Matrix 4, like all HBO Max is going to be rolling in the dough simply because of that alone. Netflix is getting Gundam. American audiences have been refamiliarized with Gundam. Thanks to Ready Player One, thanks to Pacific Rim 2. Um, and I think there is a lot of hope to really revitalize the American fan base again.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since March of 2000 when Gundam
Gosh,
Wing
yeah.
debuted on Cartoon Network, right? And Gundam hasn't been as popular ever since.
It kind of
I mean, honestly,
it had a good run up through like, let's see, we had Gundam Wing, we had G Gundam, we had First Gundam, and then right around then 9/11 happened, unfortunately. And
9/11 happened. Yeah.
and there was specifically, I think, an episode of First Gundam that involved a battleship crashing into a couple of buildings, and they were like, pull it. So it never finished its run. And I think after that, Gundam was just kind of like, and then, it got shuffled around, and then 0080, 0083 were on Adult Swim. 8th MS Team was on Toonami, and then it kind of faded away. Came back a little bit later with Seed. 00 was on Sci-Fi
2004
Channel.
was a good year. Then 3 years later, we finally got 00. Or actually, no, 3 years later, it was released in Japan.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when we got it in America, but it was on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
And not long after that, we started to get
Unicorn.
yeah,
Was
04
on
we
Adult
got
Swim.
F91. Yeah, in 04 we got Zeta Gundam and F91
I mean,
and Seed. And,
I don't know that
Seed really helped get things.
Yeah.
Well,
it was also the newest one too. I think like during the initial run, they were interested because Zeta was actually poised to be the next big like, hey, Zeta's going to be on TV. There's going to be action figures. You can go back. There is an issue of Toy Fair magazine where literally the cover image is Zeta Gundam action figures ahead of the new series launching on Toonami. And it never came, like, we never got those figures. The show never showed up on TV.
Yeah.
But the DVDs did come out. I have it on DVD.
Went straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Late 2004. That was a interesting year for American Gundam fans, but
I think we're kind of we're in a resurgence because Gundam has kind of been like just over here keeping its heartbeat steady since 00 and Seed and all that, and then Unicorn was on Unicorn and Iron Blooded Orphans did a lot to kind of keep that going on Adult Swim, and now with streaming, you've got a lot of shows on Hulu, you've got Unicorn and IBO on Netflix. And I think people are discovering it and getting into it, and they just put a whole bunch of other Gundam series on Funimation, so it's more accessible now. It's not like, oh no, I missed an episode on Toonami, I can't just go back and start from the beginning. Now it's like it's there at your fingertips. So I'm very excited to see this live action version come to fruition, and to see what they're going to do. I think a lot of people are assuming that it will just be a straight up adaptation of First Gundam, and that's a safe bet. I could see that happening for sure. I would also be very interested to see if they don't do something like come up with an original story. Whether it's also during the Universal Century or it's an alternate universe or something. There's a lot they could do, and I don't know. We'll definitely have to do like a Justin and John explain the Gundam universe side video or series.
Yeah,
like we'll dive in and just do like a 3-part No More Heroes series on Gundam or something, because it's
I'm all for it,
expansive.
man. Yeah.
People look at Star Wars and the fact that it has, Star Wars Celebration, that big convention, and all the different films and TV shows and books and stuff that are a part of the Star Wars universe. Gundam dwarfs that. Like, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it really does.
Um,
And that intimidates a lot of people. And it's one of those anime franchises that everyone knows what Gundam is, whether you've seen an episode or never seen any episode of any series ever. You
Right.
know the word Gundam, even if you have no idea what it's about. And that's kind of how its popularity has infected, America, post Toonami, original Toonami, Golden Age Toonami, if you will.
yeah.
And so, I think when people see that Netflix trailer or they see that it's suddenly on Netflix, they'll recognize the name and be interested in it. Like, oh, I know
Yeah.
Gundam. I don't know about it, but I've heard of it. I'm interested to see blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll be a good movie. I'm sure that it will. Legendary Pictures seems to know what they're doing. Brian K. Vaughan, Jordan Vogt Roberts, like all that's left is the cast. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there.
I'm pumped, dude. I'm ready for it. And I think, at least for now, that catches us up on... Oh, side note. I forgot what my side note was. That's my side note.
Okay. Excellent.
Without further ado, though, let's jump into why we are all here. Let's talk about episodes 4 and 5 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And we'll just go through it from the top, I guess, man. Where, we... Let me think. All the way back, end of episode 3, we ended with Bucky finding Io in the alleyway there when they were bouncing around trying to track Carly. So when we start episode 4, we are with Bucky and Io in Wakanda 6 years ago. So prior to the snap, prior to everything, this is, probably shortly after Bucky was left there at the end of Civil War so they could try and deprogram him. They're working on deprogramming him in this scene. And you see Io and Bucky around a campfire, and she starts saying the words that activate the Winter Soldier. And I remember watching this and being like, yeah, guys, we're 30 seconds in. I'm not emotionally ready for this yet. And it's a powerful scene because you see her say the words, and Bucky is just like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm about to snap. You're going to have to kill me to stop me. It's going to be bad, and she says them and nothing happens. And she tells him, like, you're free. And Bucky is just crying because for the first time, this thing is not controlling him anymore. Like, he is in control of himself now. And it was powerful. It was a big moment.
That was huge. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to start like that. And I was honestly expecting, them to bring in Shuri, like physically, to kind of that scene where she's actually deprogramming him, because they talk about it a lot. I didn't think they'd actually show it, and they didn't show it. But when they're practicing by the fireplace, it's like, okay, now we're going to get to the really emotional part where it's almost like his brain is trying to go to a place that isn't there anymore. And he doesn't know how to handle it anymore. And he's fearful and he's scared, and there's nothing to replace that hole. It's just a hole in his head.
Right.
And I think that's where the tears comes from, because it's got to be the most irregular feeling in the whole world to no longer have that purpose in your heart, but also not have that peace in your mind anymore. It's just gone. And what we see in the Winter Soldier, or in the beginning of Falcon Winter Soldier show, is him trying to fill that hole. With the notebook, with counseling, with these healthy behaviors and actions and things like that. That Sam kind of calls him out on in episode 5, but we'll get there eventually. It's that was a powerful scene, man. And it was just great to see Wakanda again.
Oh, absolutely. Every time you hear those drums and you hear the music, you're just like, all right, back in
Yep,
Wakanda.
we're in it. We're in it.
Um,
Wakanda
and it's just
forever.
it's so beautiful. I mean, like we're obviously like on the outskirts of it in the wilderness around a campfire, but they show you a shot of like the main city and everything, and it's such a beautifully designed location. I can't wait till
Yeah.
Black Panther 2 and we're getting a Wakanda TV series. So I am more than ready to go back to that country and explore more of the stories that those people have to tell for sure.
Yeah. No doubt. We've been waiting for a very long time for it. And even for those who don't think they've been waiting for a long time, they've been waiting
Yeah,
subconsciously.
right.
And we're all going to get very, very satisfied
Oh yeah.
the deeper we dive into
It's
this. So
it's
yeah.
gonna be a lot of fun. I know a lot of people like as WandaVision came out, as Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been coming out. Every time that a new episode drops, you see, Falcon and Winter Soldier watch party or WandaVision bash, like all this kind of stuff trending on Twitter and people posting like, here's me turning up for the WandaVision watch party or whatever. I can only imagine when we get Black Panther
Yeah.
2 or when we get, World of Wakanda, the television series, and people talking about like, here's me roying up for the royal World of Wakanda watch party and just like all kinds of coming to America memes and stuff like last time. It's going to be fun. I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
It's a celebration. Like even as a fictional
Yeah.
country, that world and those characters and that part of the Marvel universe means so much. And it just
Yes.
it always feels good to go back into it, and it'll be sad for sure when the first time we really like go back to Wakanda for a Wakanda story and T'Challa won't be there. Like that will be a lot to process and a lot to handle, but it's such a beautiful part of the Marvel universe, and I'm very excited to go back there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get Io and Bucky talking. The Dora Milaje is here. They want Zemo back, obviously, because Zemo killed T'Chaka. And Bucky shows off a little bit and speaks some Wakandan. He's fluent in it. Makes sense. He spent a long time there. But that was really cool to show him, like, I think Bucky knew, like, hey, I'm not about to pick a fight with the Dora Milaje. You guys did a lot for me. Respect. I'm here. Let me speak your language. Like I'm here. I'm a friend.
Right.
We're cool. And Io sees this and is like, all right, you've got 8 hours, White Wolf. That's it. 8 hours, and then we're coming for him. And it was funny because Bucky walks back into the hotel room with Sam and Zemo and is just like, hey, so the Dora Milaje are here to take you away. And they're talking about stuff, and you can tell there's tension in the room, and they're there to find Carly, obviously. And let me check my notes here, make sure we're on track still.
Yes.
They're talking about the how Carly wants power, and the Flag Smashers want power.
Yeah.
And that power corrupts. People who chase power corrupt. People who chase things like the super soldier serum. Zemo is very anti super soldier, anti superhero, anti anybody who is like, who has power. And he in the same breath mentions the Nazis, Ultron, and the Avengers. And Sam is just like, hey, those are our friends. And Bucky's like, the Avengers, not the Nazis. And it's like, just to clarify, okay? But it's what I love is that every character in this show makes you think. Every character in this show makes you question and double check whose side you're on and why you're on it. And if you do disagree with somebody, it's not just like, I disagree with you because you're a bad guy. It's, I disagree with you, but you bringing it up makes me think about, like, why do I disagree with you? Because you're not necessarily wrong,
Right.
but there is a reason why I am not siding with you.
Right.
And I think it's Bucky that brings up, the serum didn't corrupt Steve. Steve wasn't a bad guy, but then Zemo is like, yeah, you're right, but there's never been another Steve Rogers. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love the philosophical conversations that happen between so many of these characters, both good guys and bad guys, and it continues to happen as the show goes along.
Yeah. And we haven't had that a lot in the MCU as a whole. All of a sudden, here we're getting it from Baron Zemo. We're getting it from Carly herself. Later on, we kind of get to this point where we see her point of view with one of the major characters. But even up until this point, you're like, is Carly a bad guy or a good guy? Do we support what she's doing or how she's doing it? Why is she doing it? What are the Flag Smashers' true intentions? And the show makes us think, because we don't see it. It only gives us the, maybe the imagination portion of it. What were things like for them when the snap happened? And these people, who would otherwise cage them, hold them, tell them they don't belong in our country, blah, blah, blah. Or you don't deserve these jobs, get out of our neighborhoods, whatever. Those people are gone. The world must have been a paradise for them. And now all those other people have come back and they're just back to their same old bull s. And it sucks and it's sad. So hearing Carly's perspective is very interesting. Hearing Baron Zemo's perspective is interesting. He's not just being a butthole or a DICK. He's actually making actual sense. And he's challenging Sam and Bucky to not have this straight, narrow Jedi Council point of view where it's just like, everything has got to be black and white. Everything's got to, that doesn't work. That does not work. You have to understand. You have to listen to what I'm saying, and you know that I'm telling the truth. The only other person I think we really get that from in the MCU is Killmonger
100%.
in Black Panther. Everyone else is, even Ultron tries to make sense of the world not needing Avengers, and his big bad plan is, I'm just going to blow the world up. So, it's nice to kind of see that between Carly and Zemo and their discussions with Sam and Bucky and their respective peers and things like that.
Definitely. No, I absolutely agree. And it lends... like, I want to jump ahead because this idea and this topic of, like, people having discussions is so vital. And I think one of the reasons, like, Killmonger and his point of view, that was vital to the story of the Black Panther film. But I think one of the reasons more MCU films haven't done that is because they are, they've got 2 hours to do a movie. Whereas with this, with WandaVision, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, you're getting 9 hours, 6 hours, however long, to sit down and, like, dig into each character and draw parallels and dig into philosophy and that kind of stuff. And it's serving the MCU as a whole really well, because the stuff that happens in each one of these shows, it gives you a whole new lens to view other moments in the MCU, both from the past and stuff to come, to, like, understand that, these are thoughts that even if you're not seeing this depth of exploration in the 2-hour runtime of the next Thor movie or whatever, it doesn't mean that these are not thoughts that are happening throughout the wider Marvel universe and the people that are creating it. So they're trying to figure out how they can find Carly, where they can find her. And this is funny. Sam talks about how when his TT died, she was like a pillar of the community. So for her funeral, like, everybody came together, not just connected direct family, but, like, the whole community came out, and it was like a celebration of her life. And it was just funny to me because when he said my TT, I was like, man, I have people that I call TT. Like, I have aunts that I call TT. But yeah, and he has a good point, and they go looking for her, and they find where the Flag Smashers have been hiding out, Bucky and Sam go looking around talking to people, but you can tell nobody wants to talk to them. So Zemo uses
Right.
his experience as a dad and also his creepiness, because he's just like, part of me was like, this makes sense. He knows how to talk to kids. He was a father. And part of me was also like, Zemo, this is real creepy, my friend. And but
Yeah.
he walks around singing a little, you know, nursery rhyme, or what was he singing? Baba Black Sheep, was that it?
Something like that. Yeah, with an American accent, no
Yeah.
less. It was
And
really
then
unnerving.
he pulls out a handful of Turkish delights, and he's like, have some candy, kids, come through, what's up? And he's like, hey, my friend died, and I'm trying to find where her funeral is gonna be, can you tell me? And the little girl's like, yeah, sure. And then, just to like, ultimately, it doesn't amount to anything, but it's funny because you can tell to me, that was just Zemo being Zemo. He's like, hey, don't trust
Right.
those guys, they're bad. And he's
Yeah, I thought that was gonna
Yeah.
lead to something, and it didn't. It was just
Yeah.
Zemo being Zemo, I guess.
But ultimately, like, they figure out where the funeral is going to be, and they get some help from Sharon. I forgot what they needed her help for. I know she was like, I think she was trying to find Walker for them. Like, she was trying to keep tabs on where he was.
Right.
Because ultimately
Yeah,
she ends up
yeah.
saying like, oh, hey, apparently he's headed toward you right now. Because when they go to find the funeral, John Walker and Lamar Hoskins are right there. And oh man, Walker, of course, just comes in guns ablazing like, I'm Captain America and you're gonna listen to me. How dare, like,
Yeah.
just immediately thinks like, because he has the shield, because he's wearing the suit, that he can come in and get on them about breaking Zemo out of jail and about what they're doing and how dare they do this and all these other things.
Yeah.
And immediately they're just like, okay, shut up. Like, you don't know what's happening right now.
Right.
Zemo is helping us. He's helping us more than you ever did. This is our plan. If these people are anything like the people that I, worked with as a counselor, I have a chance. I can tell, Carly's a soldier. I can talk to her. I can reach her. And Walker said something that I thought was really telling about him.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what he says, but something to the effect of, if these people are anything like the people you worked with, talking about the people that Sam counseled. He's like, if these people are anything like the people that you work with, then that is even more reason for me to just like go in guns blazing. And
Yeah.
that hit hard and said a lot to me about who John Walker is, because the people Sam counsels, remember, are veterans. They are people with PTSD, people who have lived through the worst days of their life, people who have watched friends die, or just people who have served and are struggling to reacclimate to civilian life. Or maybe
Society.
they
Yeah.
joined straight out of high school and do not know what civilian life is, living as an adult on their own, because the military is a whole culture, and the stuff that this show is examining and like discussing in terms of veterans and the military is powerful, and it's accurate, and
Yeah.
it's true. And I say this as a veteran. Like, I know Sam Wilson's. I know John Walker's. Like, these are people who are real. Like, I've known therapists and people like the one that Bucky was seeing, because she was a veteran too. She talked about her time in service.
Right.
These are all, like, obviously they are fictional characters, but people exactly like them are very real. And
Yeah.
for Walker to have all this pride in, like, I'm the perfect soldier, I'm Captain America, I have medals, blah, 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 I earned this. And then to say that about the people who that Sam helps as a counselor, that point of view of how he looks down at people who couldn't handle it, like to him probably couldn't handle it, who now have PTSD, who now can't, find a way through life, like that to me said so much about his character. But they agree to, excuse me, they agree to what did I say? And then right then Hoskins, so we have seen John Walker just consistently be second guessed, dismissed, disregarded, doubted, all of these things, and just be completely ineffectual as Captain America. And in this moment, when he shows up guns a-blazing like he's going to take control of the situation, Sam tells him what their plan is. And then Hoskins is like, hey, John, I think he's got a point. And so it's just like, oh, now your buddy is telling you that everybody else is right too. And you just feel like, okay, it's piling up on him. It's like he's going to snap eventually.
He's going to snap any moment,
And it's, you feel it coming. And, but yeah, and then Zemo is like, hey, everybody, my associate is here. And it's the little girl that he gave the candy to, and she leads them to the funeral. And and they go in and they decide to, first of all, Walker decides to handcuff Zemo because he's like, cool, you've outlived your usefulness, you're out. And Zemo's like, whatever, this freaking guy. And then he's ready to go in and just take custody of Carly, just blow the whole thing up. And Sam is like, hey, slow your roll. Let me go in and talk to her. Give me 10 minutes. Yeah. And so everyone's like, fine, 10 minutes. So Sam goes in. He sees the funeral happening. Carly sees him. Funeral wraps up. And they proceed to have a discussion once they are the only two in the room. And this discussion, to me, shows you everything you need to know about why Sam deserves to be the next Captain America. What did you think of it, dude?
I think that the only thing I didn't like was that Sam lied to her at the beginning and said, I'm by myself. I think the conversation would have been so much better if he had just said, I got a couple of my guys outside. I told them to wait, to just give me if he was just straightforward, right? I feel like the conversation would have went a lot differently, and maybe she wouldn't have been so, I don't know, adverse to John Walker just blowing the entire plan when he barged in there and was like, okay, I got to take back control. You're not doing your job enough, Sam. It's my turn now. And just being.
Do you think that she still would have been as open though? Because as it was, him saying, I'm here, I'm just here to talk, and not telling her that everybody else was right outside, made it feel like, obviously she thought he was there on his own and that he really was just there to talk. Whereas if he had said, I have guys outside waiting, or I'm not here alone, it would have immediately been like, oh, you're here to get me,
Yeah, but it's semantics.
That's
there's
true.
verbiage.
That's
there's
true.
and he's a master at these
spun
things.
It in a way that wasn't a lie,
in a way that,
but let her know I am not here alone.
right? Here's who's with me. I convinced them to wait. We're not here to fight. We're not here to just handcuff you and take you in. Let's just talk. That's the only complaint I had about that, because Sam is good at what he does. I mean, they were conversating. She obviously felt comfortable and safe with him telling the truth, even making her think of an alternate perspective about how other people are thinking of her as a terrorist. For a split second, I was like, Sam, you're
just
too good at this
the
job.
Words that
I
came
forgot.
out of her
this
mouth.
is exactly what you do. That's exactly what he did. And then she caught herself. She's like, oh, wait. No. Yes. And let's keep talking about this, and it just kind of brought me back to Cap 2, where Steve went to go see Sam because he just needed someone to talk to, and he saw Sam, leading that group. and
Which,
counseling all
oh
the
my
vets
gosh,
there. And I
dude,
was like, yeah, this
thinking
this
about
is
it,
what he
oh
does.
my gosh, I didn't even put this together until just now. Sam disappears in the snap, right? Sam counsels soldiers
Yep.
and veterans and people who need that kind of help. And that is inspiring. And I think a little bit of that inspired Steve because obviously Steve went to him when he needed help in Cap 2.
Mhm.
Sam disappears in the snap. What does Steve do? He starts leading a counseling group
He
because he
counsels.
knows what that means. And
Hmm.
man,
Yeah.
I just put that together, man. That's,
Yeah.
gosh. I love what.
Yeah. And there is something special
No,
to.
you
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
man.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say there's something very, very special about that moment when all the heroes come back
Hmm.
in Endgame, because there's something ultra special about seeing that sling ring portal, and Black Panther is the first person we
Hmm.
actually see come out. There's something super special because T'Challa and Cap have a special
Hmm.
relationship, but the first person he
Yeah.
hears is Sam. The very first person who talks to him at all
Yeah.
is Sam. And not Bucky, not anyone else. It was Sam, and he hit him with that on your left. Like,
Hmm.
and so it just kind of like illustrates the importance of not just their relationship, but just as Sam as a
Yeah.
person. He is someone that, even though he's not quote unquote the leader of any sect of Avengers, at least not yet, when he talks,
Yeah.
people will listen. Even Steve. Steve might be the first person to stop everything he's doing and listen to what his buddy Sam has to say. So I just, yeah, that just came
Hmm.
to mind, and I thought
Yeah,
that was
man.
incredible.
It's such a man. And you know too, like obviously Iron Man was there with Cap until he couldn't fight anymore. Thor was there with Cap until he couldn't fight anymore. Until Steve was the only one left on the battlefield thinking, I guess it's me versus Thanos and his whole army. And but also
Hmm.
like I could have easily seen if Sam hadn't been snapped away, him standing right next to Cap and being like, I am also here with
Hmm.
you. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
100% right. I also love that
Yeah.
I love how much of an idealist Sam is. I love how he knows it
Hmm.
and he's unwavering about it because he I forget what he says to Carly, but Carly basically says you are either brilliant or hopelessly optimistic. And he's like, I mean, why
Hmm.
not a little bit of both? And
Like, yeah, why
yeah,
can't I be
and
both?
I think that that is such a powerful thing about his character because not only has he seen stuff as an airman and he's seen stuff as an Avenger,
Hmm.
but he's also seen stuff as a black man. And to have him,
Hmm.
and he's not ignorant of any of it. Like he understands and he sees the issues and the problems and the bad stuff, but it doesn't make him want to stop fighting. And that is powerful because as we
Hmm.
see much later on, not much later on, but in the next episode, some of that comes back around. We'll talk about that when we get there because I want to jump to it so bad, but we're getting there. But yeah, they're making headway, and it's this conversation where you just feel like, oh my gosh, if they can get through this conversation before things go haywire,
Yeah.
this could really make a difference. But of course, Walker comes in because he's impatient, and even before 10 minutes is up, he just hates feeling like he's not the one in control. He's
Hmm.
not getting the respect he feels like he deserves. So he kicks
Right.
down the door
Right.
and is just like, Carly, you're under arrest, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, really? This was a trap? And he's like, this was not part of the plan. You suck. And
Hmm.
everything just
Yeah.
devolves from there. Um,
Yeah. So
and
bad.
it,
And
yeah,
Zemo escapes.
Zemo escapes. Well, that's later on. That's when they're, because Carly escapes, and then they regroup back
Mm.
at the hotel that they're in, and Walker is just like, all right, this game's over. We're taking Zemo back into custody. Blah blah blah. Like they're just button heads with each other, and
Mm.
that's when a spear comes flying out of nowhere, and the Dora Milaje show up because the White Wolf's 8 hours are up, and
Are up. Yeah.
and oh, John Walker, man, he's
Yeah.
not a smart man. Um, he immediately thinks
No,
he
he's
can
not.
just.
Yeah.
You good?
Hold on one second.
Come in. Sorry, someone was
Oh.
knocking on the door. I keep forgetting this is not my house.
Ladies and
Go ahead.
gentlemen, our first guest on the show.
Right.
Yeah, no, he is just swinging his shield around and thinking he can control the situation. Tries to talk to the Dora Milaje like they've got to submit to him. Like he is the one in charge and they will fall back.
Right.
And he learns real quick that that's not the case because he even tells them like the Dora Milaje don't have jurisdiction here, and Io is just like, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever they find themselves to be. And when she said that, I was like, yo, you do not mess with
Yeah,
it.
that was slick. You don't know, man. He doesn't
He really
know.
doesn't, and he finds out quick
She was.
because he tries
he
to touch
does.
Io on the
And
shoulder,
in a very
like he thinks it's
embarrassing
gonna
way.
like, de-escalate the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It escalates even faster because the next thing he knows, he is, she knocks him on his rear, on his hind quarters,
Yes.
and a fight breaks out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's literally just Hoskins and Walker getting their butts handed to them
Yeah.
by the Dora Milaje. And Sam is just like, hey, man, we should probably do something. And Bucky's just like, looking strong, John.
Right.
And
Like they're just watching at
And
this
of course,
point,
that's when
and
Zemo's just
Zemo.
like, he takes a sip from his drink and then just sneaks out the back door like, well, you guys have fun.
Yeah, that was just.
But yeah, he
That
he
was
gets his
crazy,
butt
yeah.
handed to him.
Yeah.
And then eventually, they're like, okay, we probably shouldn't let them just like kill him or anything. So Bucky tries to like, hey, let's talk. And then they're like, oh, you're going to get in our way? So they smack him and Sam around
Right.
too. Io straight up is just like pressure point Bane style, just like do 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 do, and his arm just falls off, like deactivated.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't even know that could happen.
Yeah. He
And
was
a lot
shocked.
I saw some discourse online. A lot of people were like, wow, I guess, they don't trust Bucky. And I'm like, first of all, why would, first of all, like, it's not about not trusting Bucky. Like, I doubt they give that level of trust to anyone. I'm sure the Black Panther suit
Right.
has fail safes that only Shuri knows about. Like, there's probably stuff that, like, especially after Killmonger, like, they went through that whole thing. The dude was a Wakandan, wanted to come out and, like, take the whole place over and burn everything to the ground. And, like, no matter how much they want to trust somebody, like, you can never be too careful. It's why Batman has fail safes against every member of the Justice League. And
That's right.
yeah, so it's okay. Like, no, don't even try to make that argument. I think what they did was completely fine.
Right.
And the fact that Buffy, what show are we watching again? The fact that
All of
the
them,
fact
apparently.
that Bucky had no, like, he didn't bring it up again. He was probably like, no, I get it. I would have put fail safes in it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a crazy fight. They see that Zemo escaped. Oh man. And there was that one moment at the end where they pinned the shield to the table with a spear. And then after the fight was over, the one other member of the Dora Milaje goes and pulls the spear out. The shield falls to the ground. And she does the thing that Steve used to do all the time, where she like slams her foot on the shield and then like it flies up and just she automatically grabs it and holds it on her arm. When she did that, I was like,
Yeah.
that's not something John Walker's ever done. Like, it's just everybody
once.
around him showing and telling him, you're not Captain America, and here's why. You can't do this. You're not
Right.
doing this. I don't think you're good enough to do this. Your battle plans suck. Like, your negotiation tactics suck.
Yeah.
All of it. And he's just left there like this
Yeah.
lump of uselessness, just like, they weren't even super soldiers and they beat me. And,
Yeah. Self-pity.
and yeah, it was intense. And part of me was like rooting for it, but also part of me was like, this is not good. This is not good. Walker's about to
Right.
snap.
He's snapping. Yeah, he's cracking. All he is a soldier with even more pressure. Like the shield, he thinks that, like you said, the shield in the suit makes him something that he's not, and everyone around him sees that he's just not. Lamar gives him grace because he understands what the government's trying to do when he shares, John's perspective more than he ever did. Steve and Sam and Bucky, and he doesn't have to, Neither of them were given the super soldier serum. They weren't given the right tools to be superheroes or to even accurately replace the ones that they were trying to replace. I don't even know. I mean, the government is just as stupid as ever to think that it was a smart decision to put John Walker, who's nothing, again, but just a normal guy, a good old soldier, in these super villainous situations where I can't even.
There's definitely, and I'll talk about this a little bit from my experience being in the Air Force, and I would be willing to bet, because I've got friends who are Marines, soldiers, Navy people. Like I served with plenty of people in different branches. I know people in different branches, but when you join the military and you go through basic training, it's literally a process of taking you from whatever civilian life you had, whatever routines, whatever things you were used to, and mentally breaking you down so you recognize that none of that is within reach. When you get to basic training and you get inside the building for the first time, they put you in a room. They give you like 10 minutes to pull out your cell phone, call your mom, dad, whoever you're going to call, tell them, hey, and they literally, sometimes they will write it on the whiteboard in the room, and sometimes they'll just tell you exactly what to say, and they'll be like, I don't want to hear you say anything else. And you say, something along the lines of like, hey, I'm here, I made it, I'm safe, I don't know when the next time I'll talk to you is, but I just want you to know that I'm here and I love you. That's it. Like, basically just, the hostage call kind of thing, like proof of life.
Right.
And then after that, they give you either a Ziploc bag or some kind of something where you put your phone in there, you write your name on it, and the next time you get your phone is because they are giving you your phone back, like halfway through your basic training time, and they might give it to you like every Friday for 10 minutes so you can call home, like that kind of thing.
Right.
But it is all about breaking you down and getting you to the point where you feel like the only things that you have, the only things you can rely on, the only things that exist, so to speak, are your people that you are there with and whoever is in charge of you. And then like whatever are the the physical, like the base that you're in, when you eat, when you exercise, when you sleep, all that kind of stuff. Like the only thing that exists is your life as a military member. And it's just that for 6 weeks. For Air Force, it was 6 weeks of basic training, 6 weeks of that. And they even will tell you like the turning point for people in that scenario is when people stop thinking of themselves as someone who used to have this life and is now stuck here, and start thinking of themselves as like, I am someone who like, this is my life and this is my family. And when like groups of people who are in basic training together come together as groups who are like, hey, all we have is each other and this is what we're here to do, that's when you see like the drill instructors start to treat them less like, you're screwing up, trainee, and more like, all right, you guys are working well together. Like they start to have a little more like, you know, you get a groove and everything like that. And they do everything they can to put that in your brain and make that your way of life, so that even as you go on to like technical training and then to your first duty station, like when you're stationed at a base and this is your normal life job, whatever, now it plays into that idea of like, yeah, once I got to my first base, I was, you know, I knew I had to be up at 7 a.m. to exercise with everybody. Then I had to be at my office by like 9:15, and then I was out of the office by 4:30. And outside of that, it was like, cool, I'm on my own. I have my own place. I do what I want. But it's still that idea of like, this is my life. This is everything I know. Even when I'm not on duty, I'm on duty 24/7. And so everything that John has, everything that John knows, everything that he is a product of that. And for him to be as successful in his career as a soldier with all the awards and decorations and you know, all the stuff that he's done that makes him a good soldier, that is that's why he is who he is, because there are lots of John Walkers in every branch of the military, and they are the people who their only identity is being a soldier or an airman or a Marine or a sailor. They are the people who, when they are off duty, all they do is exercise or go to the range or do something that is connected to their identity as a service member. And so this is like the ultimate, like, top tier, I'm the best service member in the world. And in this world where he has been taught this is all that exists, this is why you exist, he feels like God. He feels like, I have made it. I am the freaking guy right now. But he is dealing with a lot of other people who, you know, with Sam and with Bucky, they are familiar with that world, but they also exist outside of it. You know, they are Avengers. They have lives. They were more well-adjusted, even having been in the military. It wasn't their entire identity. And they were able to preserve that.
That's so sad.
John wasn't. And it sucks because that makes him, it doesn't make him a good guy. It doesn't make him somebody that is misunderstood. He is still a villain because he has to be aware of himself and own himself and deal with himself and be able to understand, like, something's wrong with me. I need therapy. I need this, or like whatever he would need to do to adjust. But he's not there, and he has to own that. So he is very much the villain, and it doesn't mean that it's not also the government's fault for, you know, not taking better care of veterans or all that. It's so much nuance, and it's one of those things that, like, sometimes people see it, sometimes they don't. If you've been there, if you've lived that life, you're just like, I completely I know that guy. I know many like him. And so to watch him just systematically realize that all of the stuff that he thought meant he was the new hotness doesn't mean anything is like, you're just like, oh no. And so later on, when they are able to, so Carly ends up calling Sam's sister and basically says, I need to talk with Sam. If you don't tell him where to meet me and when, I will come and find you and your kids in Louisiana. And then obviously she tells Sam. Sam decides to go and confront her. And so they're talking, and of course Walker shows up again, and him and Hoskins break in, start taking on the Flag Smashers. They split up. Hoskins gets kidnapped, taken hostage or whatever. Everything's
Hoskins gets taken hostage.
He gets taken Hoskins.
Hoskins the hostage.
But yeah, everything goes down the tube real quick. And it takes about, they're trying to talk it out. Everything's just not working out in the worst way possible.
It's not working.
And
it's not working at all.
They eventually find and free Hoskins. And then there's a big confrontation no, I'm skipping ahead. I apologize. What am I forgetting? Oh, that's right. Okay, earlier. I'm totally my brain just collapsed on me, like a souffle.
There you go.
Like a poorly made creme brulee. Earlier when they are trying to talk to Carly. Sam is talking to Carly. Walker comes in, says, out of time. Everybody's in the chaos, running away, trying to get away. Carly drops the super soldier serum because she runs into Zemo. Zemo sees this and destroys all the serum except for one, which I don't think he saw it. Like, he sees them spill on the floor and he's just stepping on all the vials and he crushes them.
He thinks he destroyed all of them.
And then Walker comes in, Zemo gets away, and he sees one last vial and he picks it up. Shortly after that, he's having a discussion with Hoskins. Battle Chump. They're just hanging out in the mall or whatever, and they're talking about being a super soldier. They have the conversation about, like, if you had the choice, would you take the serum? Hoskins says, of course.
Right.
They're debating it. Like you were saying, Hoskins brings up the Erskine stuff about, like, all it does is amplify what's already inside you, who you already are. And you see John kind of, like, asking himself, like, who am I? Like, what would that do to me? And Hoskins is like, bro, you're like the dopest soldier of all time. You've done all this stuff. You got all these medals. And he's like, yeah, medals to celebrate the worst day of my life. Because it's true. You only really get those kinds of awards for surviving really, really terrible things or helping others survive really, really terrible things. And he points out that, like, you know, they train you and they teach you all these things that you need to do to, you know, carry yourself as a successful soldier and how to operate in the heat of battle and all that stuff. But once you're over there and things get real bad, yeah, that stuff is in your head. But the biggest thing that's in your head is, I just need to survive. I just need to do this. I just need to do, like, I want to get home. I don't want to die here. And in the heat of battle, not everybody plays by the rules. And if they're not playing by the rules, sometimes you don't play by the rules. And sometimes they don't play by the rules anyway. And it gets messy. And it's, you know, he's basically alluding to, like, we had to do some pretty shady stuff over there to get those medals to survive. And it's... What sucks is him saying that does not make him the villain. That is a point against the government. That's a point against, like, look, you know what your soldiers and your people are going through when they get over there. Like, you can give them all the rules in the world, but those rules only work until they don't.
You're in a
life or death situation and you have to do something. And that's not even me advocating for like war or like not having rules or anything like that. That's reality.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And then those people come home, those soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines come home, and they do not get anywhere near the care that they should be getting. At all. And John Walker is one of those people. And it's, I mean, he's a great villain because the best villains, sometimes the best villains are just villains. They are just there to chew scenery and tear it up. And they're like Heath Ledger's Joker, where it's just like, you know, we know next to nothing about him, but he is one of the greatest villains in all of cinema history.
Right.
But even characters like Killmonger, one of the reasons he was such a great villain is because you understood why he was the way he was. This is all about understanding why Walker is the way he is. It doesn't make him less of a villain. It just means now you get it. And at this point, he's got the serum at least in his pocket, if not having already taken it. And this conversation, I think, is definitely a point in the direction of taking it. Because Hoskins is just like, yeah, man, I would take it, and I think you should too. And then after that is when he gets his butt kicked by the Dormilages. So at that point, I think he's like, I'm definitely taking this serum. So
without a doubt.
So later on, you know, they try to interact with Carly again. Walker shows up. Hoskins shows up. Hoskins gets taken hostage. Walker finds him, sets him free. They're fighting. All this stuff is happening. And then Carly gets in a hit on Hoskins and sends him flying back into a concrete pillar, which immediately kills him. And this is the point where you can see every bit of whatever glimmer of light or hope might have been within John Walker completely disappear.
That was it, that was the breaking point.
And he goes off. And remember, it's Carly that hit Hoskins, not anyone else. And what's tragic is earlier in the episode, you see this guy who is one of the other flag smashers there talking about how, as a kid, he looked up to Captain America. His dad loved Captain America. He didn't think there could be another Captain America until he met Carly. So he has an appreciation for the idea and the icon of Captain America. And then that is the guy that Walker ends up chasing down. And he gives him the Batman interrogation. Just, where is he? Where is she? And he's like, look, it wasn't me. I wasn't the guy who killed your buddy. I don't know where she is. Please, you got to let me go. I'm not who you're after. Yeah. And Walker just unleashes and decapitates him with the shield. Like multiple blunt hits between the head and shoulders and decapitates the whole man. And the title of the episode is The World Was Watching or something. And yeah, literally everybody is out here with their phone just like, oh snap, caught him in 4K.
Right. World Star. YouTube.
And
got him.
Yeah. And then Bucky and Sam roll up and it's just like, oh, so this just got serious. And you can see Walker.
It was the worst situation.
He's got the crazy eyes, and he's kind of like his shoulders are hunched, and he's just like I am Captain America. And
this is the beginning of the end for him. It only goes downhill. Downhill for him.
And then from there, so that's the end of episode 4. We roll into episode 5, and Walker's on the run. He goes and hides in a warehouse, and he's quickly found by Bucky and Sam. And Sam, of course, being the guy he is, he wants to de-escalate. He wants to talk to him. He's like, hey, man, it was the heat of battle. We both know stuff happens in the heat of battle. We don't have to do this. Just give us the shield. And, of course, Walker's just like, oh, that you'd like that, wouldn't you? That's what this is all about. You just want the shield back, blah, blah. And he's like, no, but he can't think of anyone else but himself. He can't get out of his own head.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
And Hoskins is just like, or not Hoskins. Sorry, Hoskins is gone. Stank Industries is doing some funny things with your camera.
Uh-oh.
But I think we're gonna make it. Thank you, Stank Industries.
Thank you, Stank.
And so Walker's just like, you don't want to do this. And Bucky at this point is done. He's just like, yeah, we do. And they just...
that was one of my favorite lines. He's like, yeah,
like,
we
I've
do.
been waiting to do this since your smug face walked out on that stage and they called you Captain America, basically. Like, I've been waiting for this moment. You have no more reasons to give me for why not to do this.
Right.
And they get into it. It's a big old battle. And I'm pretty sure I held my breath through most of it because I did not know what was about to happen. What'd you think of this battle, man?
Well, I didn't expect the episode to open up with a battle of that magnitude. First of all, it was crazy that we got the title card after the fight. I was like, oh, that was just the beginning. Yeah. Oh my God, like I'm already drained. The battle was absolutely magnificent. What shocked me was how many times John wasn't trying to win. He was trying to kill them. Repeatedly, he was trying to decapitate them the same way he did with the dude from episode 4. And that scared me because there was multiple times where he totally could have done that. I mean, the fight was amazing. It felt like the Winter Soldier style, you know what I mean? Russo brothers style. And it wasn't just like a fight. It was like a very thrilling fight because Sam and Bucky were always this close away from getting killed. They might get hit. Oh, they fell down. Oh, they got slammed. But then every time he took that shield, it was like, ah! And it was like he was that close. Because he's a super soldier. You have to remember, I mean, with the right hit on the neck, one clean hit, and you're gone. So, especially when fighting Sam. Like, Sam's not a super soldier. So he's a lot more vulnerable. Dude, and even during that battle, you just see John continually unravel. We could have been teammates. Like, he was just losing it, like foaming at the mouth, dude. Almost like
view we were talking about is all that he recognizes. So that's his entire frame of reference. It's not even like when he says we could have been teammates, it's not in the sense of like, and I could have led the Avengers in a wider world of everything. He's literally just thinking in the context of like, I'm Captain America. I am the best in this world that I'm aware of. You could have been my second in command. Like it's
my subordinate. Yeah. And it was just wild. And I loved how it ended. I loved that they got the shield back. I loved that they fought together in coordination. It was like watching WWE, dude. It was like watching a tag team match against some big baddie, and they whooped his behind. They broke his arm to get the shield back. I stood out of my chair and I had to walk around the kitchen just to catch my breath. I was woo-hoo-hoo! And I sat back down and I was like, okay. And then the title card comes. Oh,
just like,
45 more minutes.
Even though it was like, not a hugely long scene, it's so like intense to watch that you're just like, wait, I need to catch my breath.
It was so intense. Not every Marvel fight is intense just because it's a Marvel fight. That was intense. That was like watching Bucky and Captain fight for like the first or second time in Captain America 2. Except you knew neither of them were going to get
Right.
killed. Here, it was like, I should know everyone's going to walk out of here alive. But I got a bad feeling about this because John, not only is he on the hunt, he's good at the hunt. So if they hadn't snapped his arm backwards and got the shield off, man, I don't know. Could have been game over for one of those fools, but that was an amazing way to open up episode 5.
Man. I mean, and then to
Holy.
right before the title card hits, you have that scene of like, because Bucky, I think, is the one that actually pulls it off. So he's got the shield, and then he goes and drops it next to Sam.
Yeah.
And he has this look
He
on
just
his
drops
face
it next
as
to
if,
Sam,
like,
yeah.
can you please not give it away this time? Like, can you please just hold on to it?
Right.
And then Sam, oh man, and what I feel like is almost a metaphor for this entire show so far. He picks up the shield and starts trying to wipe the blood off of it because the blood from when he took that guy's head off is still there. And he after we get the title card for the show, we jump to John being on trial. And again, man.
And I'm sorry, another really important part of that fight, John rips Falcon's wings off. So his whole, they're gone.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep in the back of your head that like the entire episode he doesn't have his wings.
Because after the title card, we see kind of the aftermath of the whole fight with the Flag Smashers and Walker and all that kind of stuff. And you see Torres.
Exactly.
And Torres is looking over Falcon's suit and his wings and everything. And the shield is there on the table. And Torres is kind of giving him the rundown about, like, I don't know where Carly is. No one knows where he is. There's not really anything to do until there's something to do. And and Sam is like, that was incredibly wise. Because Sam is just in full, like, there's got to be something else to do. And Torres is like, there's nothing to do until there's something to do. And so Sam grabs the shield and takes off. And Torres is like, what do you want me to do with these? And Sam tells him to keep them. And I was like,
right.
Did he say keep those? Because in the comics, Joaquin Torres becomes the character of Joaquin Torres becomes the new Falcon. So I don't know if necessarily like Torres in full Falcon gear is going to be like in the next episode, but I would not be surprised if we saw like an after credit scene that showed him like throwing the Falcon suit down on a workbench and then like firing up his computer, and you see he's got like plans for a new one or something, like that kind of thing. But we see Sam walk off, and then he returns to Baltimore, and he is straight up walking down the street carrying the shield bag. You know what it is. Elijah Bradley is shooting hoops with his buddy there in the street, and he's like, hey, where you going, man? What are you doing? He's like, I'm here to see your grandpa. And he's like, all right, which is cool, because like at first he was like, hey, nobody comes in to mess with my grandpa, but at this point, like, he knows who Sam is, and there's a little bit of trust there,
right? So
he's like, all right, head on in, but I'll be back there, like, don't try anything funny. So Sam returns to see Isaiah. Isaiah's in the back watering his garden, just like living that old man life, trying to lay low. And,
right.
And Isaiah sees him and he's not surprised to see him at all. And they talk. And it was oh wait, I'm skipping ahead again, man. Why am I all over? There's just a lot of stuff that I really want to talk about, clearly. Anyway, spoiler alert, Sam goes back to Baltimore. Let's go back to him leaving with the shield, letting Torres have the wings. We see John on trial. John has returned to America. He's in his dress uniform. He's in front of a tribunal of senators and other important people. And they basically tell him, look, man, you're not Captain America anymore. We're stripping you of your rank, you are out of the military, you're getting an other than honorable discharge that is retroactive to like 6 months ago or whatever. So basically, it's like you were never Captain America on paper.
Right.
You get no benefits, you get no nothing, and you are not allowed to present yourself as Captain America. And also, you better give that shield back to us ASAP. And
Promptly.
again, this is like,
Yeah.
again, John is the villain. This is part of his villain backstory. This does not make him a misunderstood good guy or an anti-hero. He might be that in the comics for one reason or another, but the MCU John Walker so far is 100% the villain. And
Villain, yeah.
and this is another example of the very real way that as long as it serves what they perceive as the greater good, they will throw veterans out the window right and left just to be like, oh, we don't know you. And it sucks. And as they were saying that, I was just like, because a lot of veterans, like they put you through training when you leave the service, and it's not they put you through training, but they have like an exit process for leaving the service. And part of that process is going to like I want to say it's like a week-long class that is just like, you know, how to find a new career, how to handle your finances, how to find a house, how to like basic adulting stuff that you don't have to worry about when you are in the service. Because when you're in the service, like, yeah, you can have your own apartment off base, you can do all these other things, but you can also have a brand new house on base, and it is just like that's part of you being in the military. You can have like all of your insurance and stuff is taken care of. Your medical stuff is taken care of. Like if you are feeling sick because you have a cold or you know, hurt your leg or something, you just make an appointment and you walk into the doctor's office and get it checked out, and you don't even have to worry about anything.
Right.
So like you literally have to learn to adult on a different level when you leave the service. On a way different level. And but even then it's like a 1 week class, and then you're on your own, and it's
thrown in the lion's den.
And it's just crazy for him to like say like, oh hey, you are retroactively stripped of everything that happened to the last 6 months, and you get no benefits and no nothing.
Right.
And for a lot of veterans, especially the ones who have been through stuff and have like medical disability or mental disability or something, like they cannot, like those benefits are a big reason for why they are able to survive, period. Whether it's continuing therapy, continuing medication, continuing treatment. The only reason I have my college degree is because I used my education benefits from the military. So just hearing them say that, like, you get no benefits and you get an other than honorable discharge, which, like, depending on what job you're going for or depending on whatever you're trying to do, seeing military other than honorable discharge on a resume is, it might not be as bad, but it's one of those things that, like, just like seeing, oh, I served time for even just like a minor, like, marijuana possession offense or something. Like, an employer sees that and they're like, ugh.
Exactly.
Having any discharge, whether it's dishonorable or other than honorable or anything like that, that isn't just like military honorable discharge. That's another thing that an employer could see and be like, ooh, that seems weird. I don't know about that. So they not only did they mess up his life, they made sure that on his way out, his life would forever be messed up.
They were basically like, you know, we are cleansing ourselves of this mistake.
But you will
know,
carry it forever.
and you will get to carry the stain we're going to wash ourselves clean. And it makes me think, what was the process of them selecting a Captain America? Who even decided they needed one?
I think I mean
Right.
again, this is all like what benefits them. So it benefits them to be in control of the icon that is Captain America. It benefits them to you
It's
know,
messed up.
be able to hire and dismiss whoever they want as Captain America. Because if they are in control of Captain America, then they are in control of perception. They're in control of what kind of missions or whatever. Like, however they feel like
Yeah.
having control of Captain America could benefit them is exactly how they would use Captain America. And then, as we see, as soon as that turns out to not benefit them, then they're like, well, we don't need him. And
Right.
and 100% they are also thinking about who they choose as Captain America. You know, they are thinking they absolute. I guarantee you, if we could be in a meeting where they are trying to choose who would be Captain America, they are thinking about how, you know, oh well, let's go with this. Because here's the thing, like, Hoskins was Walker's buddy, but if Hoskins didn't have a great record also, they probably wouldn't have let him be, you know, Battlestar. They would have gone with someone else and been like, you guys are partners now. But there might have been a discussion where they were like, well, on paper, Hoskins is just as qualified. And they would have been like, yeah, but
Right.
Walker might be a little more palatable. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been one of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
also, they might have had discussions about how, like, Hoskins might have, you know, Walker is not going to have anything else that he feels like he needs to fight for or represent other than his position as a soldier and as Captain America. Whereas with Hoskins, there's always that risk of, like, he is going to try to stand up for equality, equity, anti-racism, whatever. And that's just business we don't want to mess with. And
Right.
and then if he does stand up for it, or if he doesn't stand up for it, like if he does just play the, like, I'm only going to talk about what they hired me to talk about, then suddenly like he becomes the bad guy for not speaking up when his community would have needed him to. Like, everything about why they picked who they picked was strategic for sure.
Yeah.
So
I
to
think
see
so.
him just like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but to
Yeah.
see how they treated him on the level of just as a veteran, as a military member, is just like, it's too familiar and too heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that got me about that entire situation, not that I really like John at all, but the thing that the one thing that he had to say, which was a statement and a complaint, was, as if to say, I did everything right. I was following orders. You selected me. He looked at them dead in the eye and said, You
Yeah.
made me, you know? Not as in you created me, Captain America, but like you created this insanely obedient
Yeah.
soldier. I did what I thought was right, what I had to do. You're not out there in the battlefield. You
Yeah.
sent me, and I did it, and I blah 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 blah, and I am owed, and I am owed, and I am owed, and I am owed. And I honestly think, like, without the unnecessary toxic entitlement, I think a lot of soldiers feel that way. My dad was a
Yeah.
military man, honorably discharged, and sometimes he'll talk to me about it, about what
Mhm.
that's like, and and so I see him sometimes dealing with the VA, and I'm like, how could they treat this old man like that? Like, and so my perspective is very narrow and is very limited. But when he said that, he said, "You made me." I thought that, wow, he's probably speaking for a lot of soldiers
Yeah.
in real life right now who are facing the exact problems that you just described when you're stripped away of your rank, of your benefits, of all that stuff. It's like, no, 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 no. You created
Yeah.
this. You don't get to do this to me. I fought for you. You know what I mean? And that struck a chord
Yeah.
with me. And that was probably the last time I will feel
Sympathy. Yeah.
bad for John. Sympathy for John. Yeah, because that was just a
Yeah.
powerful line. That kind of like, it almost like not that the room was talking, but it was almost like the room just
Yeah.
went dead silent when he said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Because
But,
that's, I mean, that it's like I was saying, when you are turned into a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, whatever, you are stripped down to where the only things that really matter, or at least that matter the most and dwarf everything else, are the things that are connected to your life as a military member. And they just, in a second, like in a flash, stripped all that from him. And he's already the kind of person who that's all that matters to him. He probably didn't have I mean, like, you can see before even he joined the military, like, he was captain of the football team. Like, if he had not joined the military, I guarantee you he's the kind of guy who would have been, like they talk about, he peaked in high school because he was the captain of the football team and the quarterback, and all the girls had a crush on him. But then after high school, he stayed in his small town, and all he does is like mow his lawn and drink beer and play Call of Duty. You know what I mean? And so and
reminisce on the old days.
So this truly is just his whole identity that they've taken from him. Like, he's nothing now. And but it sounds like he's gonna get another chance at something, because shortly after that, we see him outside the courtroom, and he is approached by Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine, who is the much talked about secret cameo of the 5th episode. I know both of us were talking about, like, is this going to be another superhero? Are they going to, sneak in some other Avenger that we haven't met yet? Is it going to be Daredevil? Like, who is this person? And it wasn't, technically. It was a character who has been both an ally and a love interest to Nick Fury in the comics. She's been a SHIELD agent. She turned out to be a Russian spy, and then eventually took on the role of Madam Hydra, which is probably one of the things people know her most for. But she is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So they weren't wrong about it being a known actress, somebody that you would recognize. And they were also not wrong about her having a powerful personality, because she was hitting a very Tony Stark vibe of, like, I'm here, I'm talking, everybody listen. And she sat down between Walker and his wife, did not acknowledge her until she was like, I guess I probably should say something to her. And gives her a card that is not, it has nothing on it. It's just black on one side and white on the other. And it's just like, here's my card. And then she tells John, like, hey, a lot of people like you. I like you. And the smartest thing you will do with your life is answer when I call you. Also, don't worry about the SHIELD. It's kind of a legal gray area. It doesn't even belong to them. So you can see how even still the government's trying to play John with, like, you have to give us the SHIELD back post haste. And it's like, he doesn't have to do that. They just want him to, because if he doesn't ask questions and he just gives it back, then they're kind of like, okay, cool. We can't, like, we can just find another Captain America. As long as we have the SHIELD, we're in charge.
We're in control. Yeah.
But yeah, an article came out from Vanity Fair literally like moments after the episode aired, because I finished watching it and then I went to Google just to double check, like, okay, wait, who is she from the comics?
Who is she?
And the first thing that popped up is a Vanity Fair article about, like, Marvel has big plans for Contessa Valentina Allegra. And I was just like, oh, okay. And apparently, slight spoiler alert, I guess, even though it's out in the world now, the original plan was she was going to... It sounds like the original plan was she would be in the Black Widow movie. And the Black Widow movie, I think, has been done for a while. So I'm going to assume that her part is still in it.
Right.
And then, obviously, here she wants to keep in touch with Walker. So I'm wondering if she's going to be set up as kind of an anti-Nick Fury. And maybe she is the one who assembles the Thunderbolts. Yeah, and maybe it's because she ends up being in charge of them, or maybe it's because she maybe they have other people. Maybe she's just recruiting for them. Who knows? But it sounds like we
Right.
definitely have not seen the last of her. Ray Cameron in the chat is saying
Yeah.
I had no idea who her character was, and he was still shocked when she walked out. And it's because she walks in and you're just like, I don't know who you are, but I can tell you're important and I'm listening.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I hope we haven't seen the last of her. That is a epic
Yeah.
presence that should not be withdrawn so quickly. I do imagine she'll make a cameo in Black Widow because I read that same article. And I also think that well, I'm curious as to who she works for, right? Because every boss has a boss, has a boss, has
Yeah.
a boss. And so there's no shield. I highly doubt she's connected to Sword. What other important organizations could she be representing or attempting to establish herself?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously she's known as Madam Hydra for a bit in the comics, but I feel like at this point,
Yeah.
Hydra's a little played out. Like I don't anticipate that they're going to be like, oh no, Hydra's back again. You know, you might find a few Hydra sympathizers, but I don't think they're still around and thriving as an organization. But I did also read, and just doing some research on her, that she, I don't remember exactly. I personally have not read, I think I might have read like one issue that had her in it way back when. But I guess she was, there was some shenanigans where she was like replaced by a Skrull, or replaced somebody who was replaced by a Skrull. And it tied into like Secret Invasion and stuff. So I could definitely also see her popping up in Secret Invasion, which is going to be a very Nick Fury centric series.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely I think we'll see more of her.
I hope so.
But yeah, man. So okay, now we're caught back up to Sam taking the shield to Baltimore to Isaiah. And he sees him in the backyard, and he goes to pull out the shield, and he's like, if that's what I think it is, I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with that thing.
Right.
And Sam tries to tell him, like, hey, man, like, if anyone deserves this shield, if anyone is owed this, it's you. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. And they go inside, and they talk, and we get more of Isaiah's backstory. And it is tragic.
It's powerful. It's so tragic. Yeah.
He was one of a handful of black people. This was another thing that hit me hard because, like, I mean, obviously, being a person of color, being a black person, and hearing his story, but also on a military level, because like racism in the military is still a real thing. Like, and also, you know, he talked about seeing the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails, and being like, yeah, man, look at us. We're great. Everybody loves us. We're heroes. And weirdly enough, when you're in basic training, you are assigned to different squadrons. Not because you're flying, not like a flying squadron, but that's just what they call the unit you're in. You have squadrons, and then within the squadron, you have like 2 to 3 flights of people. And the squadron I was in was named after the Red Tails. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So just like on every level, everything that's happening in this episode, I'm just like, oh, stop it. It's like, I felt like when Io was doing the like pressure point dislocation of Bucky's arms, there's just Marvel doing that to my soul.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they have a talk, and he explains like he was one of a handful of people who were experimented on, a handful of black men. The serum didn't take well to a lot of them. A lot of them died right away just from being experimented on. A couple of them were sent out on missions and didn't come back. They got taken hostage, taken prisoner. Excuse me. And
Yeah.
and they were ready to just bomb the POW camp. They were just gonna like blow them up so there was no evidence
Blow
of
it up.
the experiments that they'd been doing. And Isaiah was like, those are my brothers, those are my people. They are not, liabilities. They are not, just things that can be thrown away. So he broke out of the facility and rescued them and brought them home. And he said, but it didn't really matter because, the serum didn't sit well with them either, and they died. And he was the only one, and nobody could figure out why he was like, why it worked for him. Nobody could figure it out. And they kept him in the facility, or no, they after he did that, they put him in jail, and he stayed there for 30 years.
Yeah, 30
and the
years.
only reason he got out was because a nurse took pity on him and wrote up some papers to make it look like he died too. And once that was the case, he snuck out of there, and he has been laying low ever since. But while he was in prison, they experimented on him, and he lifts up his shirt and shows Sam he's got a huge, just scars all over his abdomen where they did whatever they did to him. And
Yeah.
and Sam, Sam being Sam wants to, hey, we can change this. People need to know about you. We can celebrate you. You deserve to be honored, all this stuff. And he's like, do you really think that that's going to happen? Do you really think that,
Right.
Regardless of what anybody else thinks, the government is going to let that stain on their history come to light? That they are going to,
No way.
let my story be told,
Yeah.
and I won't be dead by the next morning. Like, I won't have disappeared.
Right.
And then he tells Sam something that was incredibly powerful. He says, America will not let a black man be Captain America. And even if they did, no self-respecting black man would want to be Captain America.
Right.
That was heavy. That was
That
Yeah.
wrecked me. Yeah, that absolutely wrecked me. Because it almost put a little bit of anticipation in my heart, because it was like, oh well, Sam's gonna show you, but it was like, okay, I'm while I'm glad that it took a little bit more than just Steve passing the shield along to him at the end of Endgame for him to actually decide to become Captain America. It breaks my heart that he had to go back into not only the history of Captain America and the super soldier serum and the potential future of that serum and the program, but also, the history of Captain America, but also the history of America. Period. To really decide what's going to go down, because he would see what happens when he trusts his government, just like Steve figured out what happens when he trusts his government. In Captain America, the Winter Soldier, he gets screwed. All these things he didn't do gets put on him, and he ends up the bad guy. He ends up on the run. He ends up the target of both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. He ends up being in the middle of this giant conspiracy that everyone lied to him, and that the only untrustworthy person, the spy of all spies, Nick Fury, is the only person he can actually trust. That's a pretty effed up world. To wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh, everything's upside down. So now Sam's getting a little bit of a taste of that. And boy, that just, I wish there was redemption for Isaiah, but everything that he said was absolutely true. You can't put your story out there. You can't just call Ben Urich if he were still alive and be like, hey, I got a great story for you, bud. Like, no, you can't do that. And that really, really sucks, because his story and his legacy, wow. And it's just swept under the rug. You know what I mean? Like, black people didn't do anything special. They weren't a part of the super soldier program, XYZ. The only survivor, he fought the Winter Soldier, for crying out loud. And his name is wiped out of
took-
history. It
he took
has to be
Bucky's
for the
arm.
safety of him
He
and
fought
Elijah.
the Winter Soldier and was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess he grew your arm back when he saw him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, this is that
Yeah.
dude.
and he's
And
still
you'll
jacked.
never
This
read
old
about him in a
man,
history
when you
book,
saw
like-
him in the first episode, and he stands up and says, "Get out of my house," I was like,
Right.
"Okay, sir,
Yeah, I
I'll
will
get
be
out of
leaving
my
now.
house.
Yes.
I'm watching you on TV. I will get out of my house if you want me to."
Yeah, man. He's not one dude to... So, you know, I would like to see in the future a redemption story for him. Not just like, oh, you know, reparations and, you know, but like realistically, this would never happen. You know, there's still elementary school books out there saying, you know, Christopher Columbus was the
Right,
first man to
right.
discover America. I mean, you know, we see history get skewed in real life, and Isaiah is just a blip on the map for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, because even though obviously like
But-
Isaiah's character and his story are based off of a comic book, this
Yeah.
is real life. The Tuskegee experiments.
This is real life.
These things actually
Yeah.
happen. Black men were experimented on. Like it's
Yeah.
all got a basis in true stories, truth. The name of the episode, Truth.
Truth,
The name of
real
the
truth.
comic, Truth. Like,
Truth, Red. Yeah.
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 So it sucks, and it's 100. Like, obviously, you might not be able to go find a black man who has had the super soldier serum injected into him, but I
Right.
guarantee you can go find a
Right.
black man who has gone through some really awful stuff at the hands of the country
Mm-hmm.
that he thought he was serving.
Yeah. The country that promised
Yeah.
him things. The country that promised him benefits and protection and security. Not too dissimilar to how the cops protect and serve,
Yeah.
quote unquote. And, you know, look at how people that look like you and I are treated on
Yeah.
that front. So, not to get too political, but these are the sorts of things that this show
Yeah,
addresses.
and I am like,
you know?
between WandaVision tackling mental health and this show tackling racism,
Mm-hmm.
like I got nothing but love for Marvel for not being afraid to tell these kinds of stories, because these are
Right.
in real life people like Wanda and Sam. Like, this is what they would be dealing with if they were real people. So why not tell
Mm-hmm.
their stories as if they are real people? Like, that's what makes a good story.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've got nothing
Yeah.
but
And
love
that's
for Marvel.
real. Yeah.
And also Bucky with
Absolutely.
his mental health and his progression toward, you know, feeling whole again. Like, all of it is just fantastic. I also love
Very well done.
the subtle parallels and the subtle storytelling where you look at stuff like the way John Walker is being treated, even as a villain, just being a service member, and the way he is being disregarded and ignored and cut out of history by the government is similar to what happened with Isaiah. And it does not mean that Walker is good, but it's just, it goes to hammer home, like, there are some things that are bigger than everybody that are still, they need to be looked at and questioned. And that is kind of the function that Carly and the Flag Smashers, you know, serve. But there's just, oh man, there's a lot of nuance that happens
There's a ton of
in
nuance.
this show
Yes.
that I don't think you would be able to get into if this was just Falcon and Winter Soldier the movie. Even if it was like a
Right.
3-hour epic like Endgame, like, so much of this would have to be cut because it would still only be half as long. And I love that this is the format and the medium that Marvel chose to be like, here's, you know, we're going to get into it because it's getting the time that
Yeah.
it deserves to tell this story.
It's time. Yeah.
But yeah, man, that it's
Well
powerful.
deserved, too.
And Sam, it ends on a much softer note. Isaiah does not yell at Sam to get out of his house. But
Right.
there's, I think, Sam has a much better understanding of where Isaiah fit in all this, because the first time he met him and heard what little of his story he heard, it was like a shock. Like, I think Bucky was trying to show him like, hey, you can be Captain America. He was one too. Plus, you know, he can tell us stuff about what's going on. But I think now Sam is like, I just need to know, like, because the more he knows about where Isaiah fit into all this, the more context he has for what it would mean if he were to become Captain America. And I think he got that context in spades this time around.
Absolutely.
I also think, going back to your point about redemption and trying to find some sort of closure for Isaiah, I have a feeling that when we do finally see Sam take to the sky as Captain America, I have a feeling we'll get to see Isaiah's reaction, and potentially more importantly, Elijah's reaction to seeing a black man as Captain America. Because we know what that could set up.
Absolutely.
But what else happens? Here we go. So at that point, you know, Sam's conflicted. He knows that John shouldn't be Captain America. He knows the government shouldn't pick who Captain America is. He's talked to Isaiah, and now he's questioning if he should be Captain America and what that means for a black man to be Captain America. So he's like, look, man, I just need to, like, I don't know where Carly is. I'm stuck on this Captain America thing. I'm just going to go home. So he goes home. He sees his sister. They can't sell the boat because the boat's too broken, but they have a tight-knit community. Everybody loved their parents. You know, everyone loves their family. So he makes some calls, and you hear everybody talking, you know, you hear him talking on the phone to everyone. And it's just so heartwarming to like hear how much, like how tightly woven they all are, and how he's calling them up. And they're like, hey, it's Sam Wilson. They're like, oh, what's up? Mr. Avenger, the Falcon. What can I do for you, my friend? And just like, oh, yeah, man, I love you, Mom and Dad. I'll come by in the morning. And then the next morning, literally, it's like a block party. Everybody comes out to help fix the boat. And it's beautiful.
Right.
And
it's amazing, yeah.
And then we also see that Bucky goes to find Zemo in Sokovia. And Zemo's paying his respects at a little statue, like a monument to everyone that died in
like a monument,
Avengers Age of Ultron. And Zemo is kind of like, oh, I was expecting to find you here. And he tries to tell him, like, Carly's beyond saving. This is the only way that you can stop her. You know what you have to do.
Right.
And Bucky's just like, we're going to do it our own way. And he pulls out a gun. And you can see that Zemo is just, like, ready to die. Like, he's accepting of it. And it's almost like he knew that, like, Bucky could never fully be healed. But, of course, Bucky pulls the trigger and there are no bullets. And he shows him, and it's a shot from the trailer that he drops the bullets. The bullets were never in the gun. And then from out of nowhere, the Dora Milaje come out and take custody of Zemo. And Zemo just, like, he knows that, because I think even when he was saying it like, oh, there's never been another Steve Rogers, I think Zemo knew that on some level he was saying things that would get to Bucky, because Bucky is obviously trying to heal from being the Winter Soldier. Bucky has the super soldier serum.
Right.
And he's trying to, like, I think Zemo knew that even if he wasn't directly addressing Bucky, he was saying things that would get to him. And I think this is Bucky saying, you're not going to get to me. And I think in this moment, Zemo knows, like, okay, there might not be another Steve Rogers, but there's also not going to be another Bucky. Like, Bucky's cool.
Right.
Like, Bucky's good. And he tells him, you know, I took the liberty of crossing my name out of your notebook. I never held a grudge against you. I understood that you were under control and you were doing what you were told. And so it leaves with that sort of like buried the hatchet kind of vibe that we often get from Thor and Loki, where it's like, okay, you are a bad guy. You can't be trusted, but there's a what is the word I'm thinking of? Not truce, but like a ceasefire between us, so to speak.
A ceasefire, right.
And so they take him away. You can see they're taking him over to one of the Wakandan versions of a Quinjet, and Io says they're going to put him in the raft where he'll never escape. And I'm like, okay.
You're right.
I trust the Dora Milaje to get him there. I don't trust Zemo to stay in the raft.
Right. Not at all.
And then she also tells Bucky that maybe he might not want to come around Wakanda for a while because you are kind of the one that lets Zemo out. And he's like, fair enough.
Right.
But also before you go, can I ask for one favor? And when he said that, I was just like, Bucky,
Yeah.
are you asking for what I think you might be asking for? Because at first I thought like, oh, he's going to ask for a new set of wings for Sam. Because in the comics, I believe Sam gets his wings from Wakanda. Like they're made from vibranium and Wakanda hooks him up as opposed to them being a military thing like they were in Cap 2.
Right.
But then my brain was like, it's the 5th episode. Sam's got to become Captain America. You know, like he is not just asking for new wings. He is they're not going to give him a new Falcon suit for half an episode and then have to have him change suits again. He's asking for a Captain America suit.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Right.
really powerful because it's not just, Sam makes it himself or Sam gets it from Torres or whatever, or, has somebody at the Avengers compound or Stark Industries make it. It's like T'Challa had a great relationship with Steve. Like there was a lot of respect for each other as Avengers, as people who to some degree were looked at as leaders in their country, and what they both stood for individually.
Yeah.
I mean, he got that man a shield, right? So he, so for Wakanda to have that sort of respect and confidence in the idea of Sam being Captain America, especially when you think about that in the context of the Black Panther movie, where they are, they're coming out as bigger players on the world stage, wanting to be more involved in world affairs and sharing their technology and all that stuff. Obviously, they're Wakanda. They're still going to be very careful about who they interact with, how they interact, how much trust they give them. But for them to be like, but hey, we will do this for Sam because we have that kind of confidence in him. And obviously for it to be an African nation, Black people, like, it's not something I was expecting, but now that it's happened and now that it's out there, I'm just like, whoa, you disappeared. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was just,
But yeah, for it to play out like that, I'm just like, yo, okay, when he puts that suit on, there's going to be so much that has gone into it. It's not just Sam made himself a suit. It's the journey he's been on to get to that suit. And now the people who made that suit, So that's awesome.
Yes.
And then obviously like Bucky shows up to help work on the boat. So he's working on the boat and we get a fun montage of him and Sam just being buddies, working on the boat together at all hours, working on parts of the boat that even his sister was like, you don't need to work. What are you doing? Like they just got carried away.
Yeah.
Bucky gives him the box and he was like, it's a gift from our friends in Wakanda. I just came to drop it off. And he's like, don't make it weird. Like you can stay the night. You can help work on it. Like, you are welcome here. You are a friend. And then you when his sister comes over and Bucky's just smiling at her like, hi, I'm Bucky. And she's like, hey, Bucky. And I'm just like, oh. And of course, Sam is over here with his beer like, you better not be talking to my sister.
Right. Like, do not be flirting with my sister. Like, he was not happy about that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. And it was good because you finally see the two of them kind of like as actual friends, not just as like frenemies or, two partners who really have strong contempt for one another. You could tell there's really a sense of unity and love between them. because they're understanding themselves better and understanding one another better. Like, and I love to
Yeah.
see that because they've both been in the game for such a long time. Bucky's been around for a long time,
Literally.
since the MCU, since oh yeah, for real. But James was introduced in
Yeah.
2011, and then Sam in 2014. So they've both been around for a long time and are both a huge part of Steve's periphery. So, which excites me because is it the next scene where we see the two of them
It's a
practicing?
little bit after that, I think, because he's there
Okay.
one day and they're working on the boat and he shows them the box and everything, and I think that's when he's like, okay, I'm gonna go stay at a hotel, and he's like, no, dude, you stay the night, and
Mhm.
and then he wakes up the next morning and he sees Sam's nephews playing with the shield, and Bucky wakes up and says hi and he's just smiling, and it's just this
Mhm.
little moment where you can see for the first time that Bucky is like just having some normalcy. Because, like, it's a quiet moment. They don't know
Yeah.
where Carly is. There's nothing to do, like Torres said. So he's just there
Right.
hanging out with his friend, staying the night, working on the boat, meeting his family, just all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then to, like, I think, yeah, it's shortly after that that they go outside and he's throwing the shield around with Sam. And, and Bucky says, like, when Steve told me what he wanted to do, neither of us had any idea what we would be asking of you. Like, we had no idea what it would mean to ask a black man to take the shield, and I'm sorry for that. And
Yeah. That was
yeah,
so powerful, man.
and I
Yeah.
think that it is powerful because Bucky and Steve both, I don't think would hesitate to be like, that's Sam, or that's, Rhodey, or that's who it, like, these are our brothers, these are our friends, these are fellow Avengers, these are humans, like, don't mess
Hmm.
with them. Like, Bucky did that when the cops tried to stop him in Baltimore. But Bucky
Yeah.
didn't understand fully the depth of, like, Bucky shouldn't have had to do that. And Bucky, like, there
Hmm.
are certain things that even when you think you're helping or you're doing the right thing, you don't necessarily recognize that it's not making the situation better. And
Right.
and this is Bucky recognizing that. And so I thought that was a really special moment, like a really great moment of him recognizing, like, even as an ally, there are certain things that you can never understand if that is not your story. And
Yeah.
him recognizing that and verbalizing that and being open to Sam about that was definitely powerful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Um, just that whole
Yeah.
scene was just that was just great for them to have that discussion, for them to open up, about, because they were both talking about each other's respective journeys. Sam was like, okay, this is what you need to do about your nightmares, put in the work. And then, and then Bucky was like, we didn't think about what it would be like to have a black Captain America, or to ask a black man to be that. And so their journeys, you could tell they're paying attention, and not just each other, but each
Yeah.
other's paths, their history and their
Yeah.
future, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be aligned or perpendicular, but they just realize that they're both going through
Yeah.
different things, even though they're walking the same road currently, and they acknowledge that together, and that reinforces their bond. And it was just, it was a
Yeah.
powerful moment for Marvel, period.
Yeah.
You know,
Something else that somebody pointed
I
out,
loved it.
when we first see Bucky and he's going through therapy, his therapist is like, "When did you have your last nightmare?" And Bucky's like, "I don't have nightmares. What nightmares?"
Hmm.
And in this scene, Sam is
Right.
like, "You still having those nightmares?" And Bucky kind of like smiles at him. He's like, "Every night." Like, you can see there's a vulnerability and a
Yeah.
connection there that he didn't have with his therapist, and definitely wasn't there earlier on with Sam in the series. But they have learned and grown from each other so much.
Hmm.
So I thought that was great.
Yeah, they have.
Um,
Yeah.
and then you kind of, from there we get to the so from there they part ways, and you get the shot of them shaking hands, and Bucky basically says, in one way or another, they each say, like, when you need me, I'll be there. I got your back. But then they have to reaffirm, like, but we're not friends.
Right.
No, we're just partners. We work together. We had a
Right.
mutual friend. We're a couple of guys with a mutual friend, and now that mutual friend is gone, so we're just a couple of guys. And it's like, okay, all right, whatever. But
Right.
yeah, and then from there we get into the training montage, where you just see Sam getting better and better and better at throwing the shield and bouncing it off of stuff and just mastering how to use it. And you see him struggle. Like the first couple of times, he's like, "Oh, don't hit me!" And he's trying to, and he's like, dropping it and all kinds of stuff. And he at the very end, he's tossing it around and he throws it and then does like a crazy flip and then lands and grabs the shield. And you're just like, he's done it. He's ready.
He is. There he is. Yeah.
Then we find out that the Flag Smashers are gearing up for another attack. And this is the big one because the GRC, the Global Repatriation Council, I think it is, they are voting on whether or not to send all refugees back to their home countries. Because as we've seen so far, they are in camps in various countries that are underfunded, understaffed, under everything. And now, after everything that's happened with the Flag Smashers and Captain America and all that stuff, they are voting to send them all back to where they came from. And during that vote is when the Flag Smashers are going to attack. So they set up another one of their little flash mobs in the park. Yeah. And Carly reveals that she has called in help to get weapons and a bunch of other stuff because she is just fully in terrorist mode now. She has been radicalized to a radical degree. And it's Batroc, the Leaper. And he is like, look, I'm not here to join your cause. I'm not here to fight for anything. I just want to kill Falcon. Like, I want to kill, I want to kill Sam Wilson. And so he's like, so here's your weapons, and you're going to make sure that when he shows up, I get a stab at him. And then they do their little flash mob thing, so everybody gets up and walks away, and nobody knows what just happened there. So
Right.
Later on, you see them start to, like, the voting thing happens or whatever. Or no, later on, Sam is on the phone with Torres, and he's just giving him an update about, like, hey, man, I don't know, like, we don't know where they are, whatever, but I think I have an idea because when we were in Europe, they had all the secret Flag Smasher symbols and we're communicating with their phone, and we, found a way to track where those show up. And one just showed up in New York. And so they're like, I don't know why they'd be in New York, because obviously it went off to do the whole flash mob thing. He's like, I don't know why they'd be in New York. We're trying to find out. And that's when Sam sees on the TV the report about how they are about to have the vote on whether to get rid of refugees. Yeah. And Sam's like, I have a feeling I know why they're going to be in New York. And then you see the attacks start, all the power goes out, all that stuff. So things are starting to get
power
real.
Goes out, yeah.
And we cut back to Sam, and he opens the box from Wakanda, and we don't see what's in it, but you see his eyes go wide, and then you see him get like a determined look on his face and take a couple of really deep breaths. So whatever's in that box, he's just like, oh, this is important and heavy.
This is
100%. That's his Captain America suit.
Without a doubt, that's the entire getup. Yeah.
So that was...
And the episode ends.
That was a powerful way to end the most recent episode. And we were talking earlier, this whole thing absolutely felt like the end of a second act heading into the third act of a Marvel film.
Yes.
Like, it feels like this is exactly what you would see leading into the big final battle. So I am very excited to see what happens when they get to New York. And I'm very excited to see Sam in that suit because I feel like that's going to be a moment that hits hard. Oh, and then after the credits, we get our first after credits scene in this series, and it is John.
Right.
Before we see anything, we hear like the sounds of a workshop and a hammer on metal, and I'm like, y'all, did you bring Tony Stark back? Like, what is this? But no, we see John Walker hard at work, creating his own shield with all of his medals attached to it, because of course he needs the world to see that he has earned this. And the first thing I think in my head is just like, that shield is that's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It'll fly when he swings it because he has super soldier power. But other than that, it's not vibranium. It's just some clumsy, stupid metal in comparison, and it's going to be awkward and weird. But that scene does supplement another powerful thing that he said during his, I guess, what do you call it, a court martial? He said, "I am Captain America." After the government told him, "No, you're not," and it was kind of like it was everything that you said, really, about identity. This is his identity now. He doesn't have the identity that he was given as a soldier, as a man, all this stuff. He found a new identity as Captain America, and he's holding on to that. And so this scene shows that he's serious about that. He's not letting go of this identity because the government tried to take everything away from him. But they can't take away what he's going to do on his own. No longer government sanctioned, no longer with the military. He's out. He's just going to do his own thing, but he will maintain this identity as Captain America, as toxic as it will be for him. So we will get to see kind of the full embodiment of either quote unquote super patriot or quote unquote U.S. agent in the final episode. And yeah, that was the end of the episode.
Man, we did it. We caught up. we gave you the double feature 2.5 hour breakdown of both of the previous episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but we're happy to do it. Because if we didn't do it, we'd be talking about it to ourselves. But we love talking about it with you guys, and we're more than happy to do it. And we're excited for the last episode. I hate it when you realize it's the last episode. I hated going into the last episode of WandaVision. I hate that we're going into the last episode of this, but I'm also excited because these are great stories, and I'm excited to see how this one wraps up.
Good stories are good stories because they end well and beautifully timed. So,
any final predictions for the next one?
My only final prediction is
Mephisto
that
will come out.
Watch them start talking about that during Loki. I honestly don't think Mephisto is going to be a major Phase 4 character at all.
I don't either. I think the next time we might. Well, I can imagine maybe we might hear something about Mephisto and Multiverse of Madness, just because that's, I could imagine that.
Oh,
but
sure.
I doubt it's going to be like, oh no, Mephisto's behind everything,
Right. It's Mephisto all along. Yeah, that's not
I think the
happen.
next time you see Mephisto as like a character, it'll be because we're getting a Ghost Rider TV show or movie or something.
Ghost Rider. Absolutely. Yeah. And they're in talks of bringing Nicolas Cage back as the character, his version of the character, which I think that's a bad idea, and I hope they don't go through with it. I wouldn't mind it
in the context of Multiverse of Madness, but
the multiverse stuff could bring both him and Robbie Reyes, who we've already seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I would love nothing more than to have Robbie Reyes continue to be like the MCU's Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider.
And then say like, oh, it was a Cage, not Cage, Johnny Blaze, yeah.
Johnny Blaze.
Say it was Johnny Blaze in like the 70s. Like do a Captain Marvel, with it and show us the modern version, then be like, oh yeah, but there was this guy before,
Right, like
Yes,
Ant-Man
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. Only prediction I really have for the final episode is I do have a scary prediction, and
okay.
I hope I'm not wrong. I think they're gonna address suicide because I think John either will successfully or unsuccessfully attempt to kill himself.
Okay. What is that something that you're just vibing on, or did you get that from somewhere?
I just know my dad's stories about military men being
Sure.
discharged and
Yeah.
how hard it can be. And again, my perspective is unlike yours. It's very limited and narrow, and I need to be careful about how I speak about it because
that
of
scenario and that
but-
those things absolutely happen.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was like you had heard a rumor or like that had happened in a comic.
No,
but
no,
within the context of what he's gone through in reality, I could absolutely
Yes.
like that is something I could absolutely see happening or almost happening.
Yeah. So that and this show isn't afraid to tackle these subjects. You know what I mean? And so why wouldn't they address that as well? I don't think Zemo's gonna pop out of nowhere. I still think Sharon Carter's the power
I think
broker.
so too.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have on the larger MCU, so I don't really care about that right now.
I wonder
But,
I do wonder if Sharon is the power broker or if Sharon works for the power broker. Because I still think the power broker might be Ross. I still have a feeling the power broker might be Ross, and that maybe, obviously Ross wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D., but maybe Sharon was already talking to the Secretary of Defense, trying to pull some deals, because we also know that he's willing to like pull some strings and get what he wants based off of what we know about him.
Oh yeah.
And that maybe through her, he was trying to like pull some strings and get what he wanted to happen. And if that's the case, I could also imagine that Contessa Allegra Valentina, whatever her name is also working on behalf of the power broker. And that maybe Sharon ends up on the Thunderbolts alongside Walker, alongside whoever else, Red Hulk, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right. I could see that. We got to have more little teams out there than just the Avengers, and right now they're the only actual team in this universe, or with the exception of the Defenders, of course. Whether you believe they're MCU or MCU adjacent, the Defenders exist. But right now, we don't have Thunderbolts. We don't have two different groups of Avengers existing at the same time. Like the original East Coast. We don't have the West Coast, the Great Lakes, the Mighty, the Dark, the Young. Which the Young have got to be coming, right? But we don't have, we don't have the X-Men yet. We don't have the Fantastic Four yet. We don't have Power Pack. We don't have Champions. So they've got to start realizing, well, we do have Guardians of the Galaxy, but outside of that, we need to realize, there's a lot of teams out there that we need to start forming. Young Avengers is obviously at the top of that list. Thunderbolts probably won't be too far behind.
This is a stretch. It just popped into my head, though, so I want to say it. I would love if at some point during Spider-Man No Way Home, because we know Doc Ock is going to show up in that. We know that
now.
Electro is going to show up, and we know that these are both characters. We don't know if it's just going to be that they are this universe's version of those characters and just happen to be played by the same people, or if these are going to be those characters from their respective versions of Spider-Man on film coming to this universe.
Right.
If they are, those respective versions coming to this universe. Whether they are able to get the same actor or not, I would love the idea of Norman Osborn coming to this universe, because we don't know anything about Oscorp as a business or Norman Osborn as an entity in this universe. And I think at this point we would have heard about, you know, a rival tech firm to Stark Industries, especially after Tony Stark died, right? You know, talking about him coming in and trying to take over or buy out what's left of Stark Industries or something.
Oh, yeah.
I would love for a version of Norman Osborn to come through the multiverse and be like, yeah, I'm smart. Yeah, I'm this. Yeah, I'm that. And I'm rich. But my main goal in being here is to just kill all the spider people. So I'm here to kill Peter Parker. And then he is established in this universe. And maybe he becomes like a benefactor / member of the Thunderbolts.
I could see that.
Maybe he gets the Iron Patriot armor or something. I don't know.
I think they screwed themselves out of the comic book accurate version of that character.
Sure.
But he could come up with a familiar looking armor, maybe. Or maybe, I mean, because Rhodey did take back the War Machine identity. So maybe, there's room for someone else to become Iron Patriot as well.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, and they could bring back what's his name? What's his face? Forget what I said about Norman Osborn, because that's a stretch. You'd have to do a lot of legwork to make that happen. But they could bring back Hammer. Put Justin Hammer in the Thunderbolts.
Oh, yeah, dude. Hammer Industries, dude. Yeah, we haven't heard of Hammer Industries since Luke Cage. So he's still around. He's live and kicking. Yeah, we could use him back. He was funny. He was a delight. He was probably the best part of Iron Man 2, in my opinion. So I'd love to see him come back. But yeah, that makes total sense. Have him as the benefactor of the Thunderbolts. Something that has to do with the Sokovia Accords, government sanctioned, some place where someone like John Walker would, feel at least like he belongs and stuff like that. So it could work. We'll see.
That would be really cool. I could definitely see Ross pulling some strings and being like, you're here, you work for me, kind of like, yeah, I could see that for sure. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm pumped. Who knows how much of this stuff would be set up by the end of the show, but I am 100% pumped to see how the show ends. And I'm excited to come back here and talk about it and break it down. Justin, you got anything else to add? Any final words?
Well, other than that, this was an extremely powerful episode. You know what I mean? It spoke on a couple of really real world tough issues. And that's what's keeping these superhero shows relevant. It's why WandaVision is relevant. That's why Watchmen from last year was so relevant. It's why Invincible is currently relevant. You know what I mean? Even the Justice League Snyder Cut, some of the issues that they spoke about in that film that we didn't get in the theatrical film, it makes it relevant and beautiful and tragic and heartfelt. And I'm impressed and proud of Marvel for telling these stories when they could always do the safe thing and just not talk about it at all. And we live in a time where the only thing I say this often, but the only thing worse than violence is silence.
Ooh, yeah.
And if we don't speak up, these conversations, the importance of things like Black Lives Matter, the importance of having a unified front, the importance of entities like education and churches, speaking up against real issues. It's like if everything stays silent, this world is going to inflate on itself. It's going to implode on itself, and I'm shocked that we didn't last year. These superhero shows are setting an example for what needs to happen in real life. They're setting an example for the conversations we need to be having in real life. conversations about race relations, conversations about grief and counseling, conversations about the military and the treatment of the people that served, like yourself, veterans, and overall mental health. So I'm proud of Marvel. I'm impressed with Marvel. And as we get into this final episode, um, I would just say get a bucket ready. There's going to be some tears.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to hit the store and get a few more boxes of Kleenex for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'll be sitting in front of my TV wearing my Captain America shirt. I got the first issue of back when it came out, when they first made him Captain America. I got the first issue of the comic when Sam was Captain America, and I remember when it happened in the comics, I was just like, "Yo, this is big. This is really cool," and
this is massive. Yeah,
and now to be able to watch that play out in live action is just I'm gonna go back and reread that issue and that storyline and just like relish it when it comes around next Friday. So
absolutely.
Until then, I guess thank you for joining us. You can follow Justin and I on Instagram. You can see our little informations right here on the screen and here on the screen. I'm pointing. Hit us up in group therapy. Hit us up on social media. Tell us what you think of the show. Leave comments on the video below. We'll check it out and respond if we can. We want to know what you guys think, and we want to know what you guys are anticipating for the finale of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Until then, though, we'll see you next time. We're with you.